Sabres game tonight. They host the Toronto Maple Leafs. Pregame at 6 for a 7 p.m. puck drop. No Owen Power tonight. His injury does appear to be serious, according to head coach Lindy Ruff. Ruff also said that Power is still being evaluated by team doctors. And also out tonight, Beck Mallenstein, due to an undisclosed injury. And with that, according to the AHL transaction wire, the Sabres have recalled forward Isak Rosen. And then in net tonight, it'll be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. But before pregame tonight, do stay tuned, as at 5, Sabres general manager Kevin Adams will join today's show. 9 other games tonight in the NHL. Some notables. Columbus can make things interesting in the East with a win tonight versus Philly. Game time also at 7. If the Blue Jackets do win, they are still alive, though if they do lose, Montreal will take that final wild card spot in the East. And then out west, playoff implications at 8. Minnesota hosting the Ducks, St. Louis hosting Utah. Both Minnesota and St. Louis currently sit in the 2 wildcard spots, with Calgary and Vancouver just behind. Calgary in action and has Vegas in town at 9. Big shakeups coming for the Miami Dolphins. GM Chris Greer confirmed today the team will be parting ways with cornerback Jalen Ramsey. They will be seeking a trade. Greer did say, though, the team is not looking to trade wide receiver Tyreek Hill. And then some quarterback visits. Colorado's Shedeur Sanders is going to have a private workout with the Giants on Thursday. Giants are also expected to have a private workout with Alabama's Jalen Milroe. Milroe also set to meet the Rams. And then today is with the Seahawks. Bison's on the road versus Syracuse. They're down 10-2 in the 5th. You can listen to the remainder of that game over on our website, WGR550.com, or over on our sister station, The Bet 1520. And then the NBA playing games start tonight over on TNT. First up, Orlando versus Atlanta, 7:30. Then at 10, it's the Warriors taking on the Grizzlies. The winners will become the 7 seeds, while the losers will have to play again on Friday for a chance at the conference's 8 seed. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Welcome to the Hotel Hell. Check-in time is now, check-out time is never.
It's Mike Schopp.
Does my room have cable?
No. And the sheets are made of fire.
Can I change rooms?
Sorry, we're all booked up. Hell convention in town.
And the Bulldog.
Can I have a late checkout?
I'll have to talk to the manager.
You're not the manager, even in your own fantasy?
I'm the owner. The co-owner. With Satan.
It's Mike Schopp.
Okay. Just so I understand it, in your wildest fantasy, you are in hell, and you are co-running a bed and breakfast with the devil.
And the Bulldog.
Yeah, but I haven't told you my salary yet.
Go.
$80,000 a year.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Draft fever? Not yet?
No.
You love the draft.
I do. I love the draft.
If you forgot.
No, I don't feel, no. Maybe draft tickle in my throat.
Oh, yeah, sure. You know it's coming.
It's a little scratchy.
You're worried.
A fever could be coming.
You're going to try to drink it away, but
I'm anticipating a fever.
You're pretty sure you're going to be sick in a couple of days. Yeah. I'm not sure I have draft fever. I've had a tough time with this draft because it's defense and it's pick 30. Like, there's no trade speculation worth caring about. You know, it's just sort of like you just kind of wait. It'll be after 11 o'clock next Thursday night.
Yeah, I saw the last 3 years, the pick. 2 of the 3 years it was at 11:38, and the other time it was like 11:29 or something. So it's gonna be late.
I agreed without even thinking about the time today to do a podcast for when the Bills are up. Oh, wait a minute. I'm never up at that hour anymore.
Yeah, that would be.
I agree. I said yes.
That would be a quick, hard no for me, dog.
I'll let you know on socials.
Nope.
Where you can find me next Thursday night at 11.
I'm not going to be doing that.
It won't be at the Morning Guys party. I'm jealous of the party. Like, I wish we'd had the party. Or I can't go to their party, though.
Why is that?
It's theirs.
But yeah, but you could.
I'm not on the marquee. I'm not going to that. I can't go to their party.
It would be cool to support them.
I want to support. I do like the idea of supporting them. I want to do it in a different way then.
Okay.
Because it sounds great.
Yeah, no,
they said last year was great. The Bills didn't even pick.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a fun time. I know that I'm not going to want to be out somewhere waiting until 11:45 for the Bills to pick a 340-pound lineman.
Where people are asking you, "Hey, are you Sneaky Joe?" I heard you were going to be at this.
So yeah.
Plus, you could also sort of steal their thunder if you're at that. It's their thing. You show up, now it's yours.
I don't know. Do I come off like someone would walk in and try to like own the room or something?
No.
I mean, no,
I wouldn't say it would be intentional.
No, I don't think that would happen.
I would think it would happen, but I don't think it would be intentional.
No, I mean, that's flat.
You're taller than everybody else.
Well, that's right.
You walk in, they're going to gravitate to you. You're the tall one.
Big flat-brimmed hats on them, even bigger.
You've got the good name, the good face, the height. They're going to people gravitate to you.
Good face, the big dumb red face.
Yes, I was about to say it that way, but you already did. It's easier. I'm off the hook.
Big dumb red face.
I was going to describe it as a big dumb red face.
Hashtag big dumb red face.
Yeah, no. I have I think a kind of a good thought about the draft, though.
Okay.
And I'm glad I didn't think of this yesterday, because I would have said it, and it would have sort of like kind of coming on off the top rope of what we were already saying. So here's what I mean. We're trying to predict the Bills' first pick, right? We're trying to predict their strategy. And one school of thought, all right, mine, is they can't pick a wide receiver with the first pick. Why? Is it because they don't need one? Not exactly. It's because they've just done it. 2 years in a row, if you include Kincaid, which you should. So 2 years in a row, their first pick was a pass catcher. So they would never do that again because they have those two guys. Those two guys are not, about to be suspended as far as we know, or, they're alive. Kincaid and Coleman. So one thing we talked about for a few minutes yesterday was, well, what would it look like if they did it? And wouldn't that be a reason why they wouldn't?
Right, yeah, because Nate, I mentioned how Nate mentioned to me on Friday when I brought this up. He said, like, who's getting pushed down if you do that? Like, Coleman's getting pushed down, probably. He's, he doesn't have to be that way, but probably that's who, loses some runway, some playing time, especially if you draft someone that early. Like if you draft someone 30, or even I want to say on Friday with either of those 2 second-round picks, I think that becomes maybe challenging. And the optics of that would, I think, and I'd say that people would knee-jerk to it and be wrong necessarily, that the Bills are down on either or both of the guys you just mentioned, Kincaid from 23 and Coleman from 24. Otherwise, why are you prioritizing this? So, yeah, I also think that is and I think I said it this way yesterday when I brought it up, how I never liked a pushback. I didn't really have one. Like I'm over here going, don't forget about Cooper and Holland's leaving. They need a guy. But you put it the way Nate put it to me on Friday, and like you're saying now, I think it could keep the Bills from doing it, and maybe not even for the best reasons.
Okay. I think the way you describe it, he and I are saying different things. Oh. You're talking about he might be talking about who sits, right? Who does this person come in over
and displace? Sure,
and then it's a question of, your asset allocation and how well have you thought this through? You're signing Palmer, you've signed Samuel, you drafted Coleman, you drafted Kincaid, etc. Have you really thought this through? That's one aspect of it. Another is just, if it's different, I think it's a little bit different, is just more sort of how you look. It's the second part of that point is kind of the same point. How you look is under question. Or in question, because it looks kind of scattershot. And it's how they're different to me, if I didn't make this clear, I don't think I did, is you're not so much figuring out who's out in the equation as you are like, all right, well, what does this kind of look like overall? It looks pretty random. You signed 4 or 5 guys last year besides drafting Coleman that, you're just hoping that somebody makes a big impact for you. The closest you got from any of those guys was Hollins, who scored 5 touchdowns. Like that led the team.
And played all the time.
And played all the time. Like that was a success, but it really was throwing darts. I mean, Claypool and MVS and all the other guys that came and went, they really were throwing darts. And that doesn't – I feel like this is subjective in terms of how it looks on the general manager. It can look like you're desperate, but it can also look like you're trying, you're active, and that's what you want. So it's kind of both. Depending on your attitude about it, it's kind of both. If the Bills drafted a receiver at 30, I think most people would, not Bills fans necessarily. Most fans are going to like whatever they do, but most other people are going to be like, what's going on? Like, you just kind of did this, and here would be the answer, though. They don't have it.
Right.
And that's really back to, you want to give Bean credit for all those signings, for hoping that MVS works out, or that Claypool works out, or that, Coleman in his way works out. That's a bigger investment.
Yeah, you have to be a lot less worried about what it looks like and more concerned with what you have and like what you need to get done. What do you need? And I do still think there is a need, unless they're not as worried as they sounded about Coleman, or to a lesser extent Kincaid, because they both were sort of criticized, or at least if not pointedly criticized, sort of sternly told, you need to do more. I need you to get bigger and stronger. We need more. You need to push through your injuries. This is pro football. We're counting on you. And I think I mentioned this yesterday. That increases to me the need that I feel they have, because it's a way of telling the world we don't have it yet. Like, we're not all set there. Like, I'm telling, I need this guy to do this and this and this and take this step, and this other guy to do this and this and take this step. And, sure, if you draft someone, there's no way you can be sure that they're going to step in ahead of either of those guys. It's very unlikely. They already have a year of experience under their belt in the system and all the stuff. But still, you still sound to me like a team that needs a guy. If you look at their depth chart, I don't think you'd arrive at they need a guy. Like, the depth chart and the draft statuses. I got a receiver I drafted at 34 last year, or 33. Excuse me. I've got this Kincaid. I've got Curtis Samuel. I signed Josh Palmer. I've got Khalil Shakir. I just re-signed him. Like, what's my problem? I've got 4 guys going out for passes on this play. There they are. And then the rest,
it's okay.
It's okay, right? It is not all set. So I don't want to dismiss. I mean, I recognize that the betting favorite would be defense with that pick, and maybe even defense with all 3 of those picks Thursday, Friday. But I think if it falls the right way, and Bean can kind of get over everything we're talking about here, and a guy they really love. Like, they love Matthew Golden, and for some reason he's exactly what they need. It's a nice compliment to Coleman, and someone that they feel can potentially become maybe even a number 1 for them or something. Then I think the need is strong enough that it wouldn't be just, no, we can't do that, or we shouldn't do that because we need a corner, or we need a big mahonkin defensive tackle.
They do need other things, and I'm not blind to that. I want to talk about, because we throw this kind of stuff around, and already again today, like how Bean might be thinking in terms of himself. Not so much like just in a selfish way, but what's the most important thing is to keep the job. And you don't want to, he's kind of like down a little bit right now with the draft, with Elam and then Kincaid and then Coleman. So if it were me, I'd be like sort of keen to that. I'd want to play it a little bit safer. I'd want to make sure I filled a hole, and then everybody in that press conference is going to talk about how smart it was. Because, well, obviously they needed this corner. I mean, I could have every defensive tackle in this draft, though, and still give up 30 to Kansas City. I think of the Giants. And what does everybody say about the Giants? Like, you've got coach and GM who need to keep the jobs that they have. And ownership shouldn't really care. Owner doesn't need Brian Daboll, right? He's still going to own the team. And as I say all the time, because I think it's really a key thing that gets like sort of lost in most sports talk, is like the owner is the one with your, in theory, with your sensibilities. He's the one that cares about like the long term. The coach and the GM are temps. Even McDermott and Bean, they'll be gone. Someday they'll be gone. Mm-hmm. So what matters is like what's for the best for the Bills over the years and for the Giants. And so the Giants are in this spot where they have Russell Wilson and they have Jameis Winston. And what does Brian Daboll really need from that to stay on? Maybe he needs a winning record or something like that. Like, well, do I want Shadur Sanders? Then if I pick him at 3, do I play him? Like, I think I do. And I think I'm out of here if I do that. Right. So who should decide?
Right. You might, yeah. If, in their case, real quick, like, I could see Daboll and Shane, if they're thinking about their futures as much or more than what's best for the team overall, then yeah, let me get Travis Hunter on the field with Russell Wilson, and maybe we win 9 games or 10 games, and I survive.
Right. Neighbors. I mean, You might have something. So it's really just simply the coach who's on the hot seat and the rookie quarterback. How often does that work out? You know, like usually that's Darnold with Todd Bowles, right? That's usually, or Adam Gase or whoever. Like that usually doesn't work out. So should the team then not pick the player because the coach is in trouble? No, it shouldn't work like that. I think all the stuff about, it's all speculation. None of this is like from Brandon Beane. It's all just us talking about what seems logical. None of that stuff about what they've done before should mean anything.
That's absolutely right. That should be right every year.
That should be right all the time. Everything they've done in the past should be irrelevant. You know, you have your roster. That's relevant. But not who you picked and when and how much money, mostly like the money. Like it really just, the point about they've drafted Kincaid and Coleman shouldn't matter when analyzing what they need. They need corner too. I'm not saying they don't. But it shouldn't matter. So now we're talking. Like if we could live in a world where that wasn't a real thing, it really becomes pretty exciting. Like the reason I can't get to you and maybe everybody, not everybody, but many people, the reason you can't get to wide receiver at pick 30 is because of Coleman. They just did it. And they lost Elam. That didn't work out. Run stuffing. Like that's it. Like they just did it. If you take that out of the equation, it's closer. What receiver looks like.
Yeah.
I think you have. There's no exact consensus on this. I mean, there would be an average, but like on ADP chasing today, we looked at different mock drafts. The first one we looked at was Todd McShay in the first round, not including Hunter. He's got 2 receivers. Others have 4 or more, right? 2. I think the guy that is the most exciting, if you could get to a point where you're not hamstrung by what you've done in the past, is Luther Burden. That guy is shooting the moon. And it could bomb. Like he is like sort of high ceiling, low floor, right? Burden. That could bomb. But that is if you really, we're trying to win. Like you're trying to win big. And in this scenario, we don't care who we picked before. If we relegate Keon Coleman to a lesser role, than we do. Not exactly perfect, but then we do. Because we want our best players on the field. I think Golden A is probably picked already because almost every mock draft has him going like before pick 20. And B has the wrong profile. He's the kind of guy you don't draft. He had the burner time at the combine. He hasn't really been that productive in college. He's not big, he's sort of like the example of the guy that's kind of fool's gold in the draft. Doesn't always happen that way. I mean, Worthy might be good. He definitely came on. Yeah. But I think Burden is like football guys. Wide receiver 2. Sam Monson, wide receiver 3. Palazzolo, wide receiver 3. Ahead of Ibuka. Sam and Steve have Golden as their wide receiver 7 and 8. They've got Royals and Higgins and Jalen Noel, these other guys in there. Interestingly, Ibuka has his wide receiver 11, which is really unusual.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. All this is just kind of for fun because ultimately I come back to they're not going to really do it. They didn't do it when they needed it.
Right. 2 years ago they needed it. Last year, I mean, they did it, but they punted it as
wide receiver 8.
as far as they could. I mean, they did.
That's right. Pretty much.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that about Golden. He reads to me, the more I read about him, the more and I don't know if this is a good comp or not, and this is not my area, but I feel like I'm reading about Zay Flowers when I read about Matthew Golden.
Oh.
And, look, whatever. I'm not studying in like the guys you just mentioned, but that idea to me still... I like that, but I don't think it's probably not realistic. We talked about Burton yesterday, right? Like, isn't that the guy that Tyler had the dude on his podcast talking about? Like, there's maybe
the mom problem.
There's a mom problem or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The Bills might need to or could maybe use to get off of the high horse about some of that sort of stuff. I'm not saying go draft guys that have hit people, especially their significant others or anything like that. But
allegedly,
yes. But you've got a guy. If you've got a guy that has had some issues, trust your room, trust your team. Maybe you can sort of bring him in and make that work. I recognize the stakes, and it's easy for me to say from way out here because if that happens and the guy, sleeps through meetings or something and isn't on time and all kinds of stuff, then you got a problem on your hands, and it's a big asset. And in a year where you just did it 2 times in a row, maybe that's too much risk to bite off. If there's a safer guy there, then maybe I could see them doing it despite all of this. I just have never wanted to dismiss the idea entirely. I don't think it's it's not even like a coin flip. I think it's pretty heavily favored defense. And maybe even a third pick on defense. A lot of the guys, the Bill, sure, they've met with, borderline first round and second round type prospects, but they are also, it's like every day, there's guys coming in that I have to Google them specifically. They don't even show up on my rundown of guys. You know what I mean? Like I've got the CBS, they've got only so many guys listed at CBS where I generally use here because it's easy for me to navigate and get where I want to go. And some of these names, just like that guy doesn't show up here. He's not one of the top, 20 wide receivers according to CBS Sports. But so that
who's Trapasso's Elijah Badger?
Yeah, right.
Florida guy.
He's not on those lists. And there's another guy that they had visiting today that's got returnability that's not on that list. A guy from Ole Miss, I think I'm thinking of. Not Trey Harris. Not Trey Harris. No. Another guy.
All right.
Who
DK Metcalf
caught 9 touchdowns last year, and so that sort of leans into they're just going to pick a guy. They're going to try to find Khalil Shakir again. They're going to try to pick a guy on Saturday that hopefully can play for them and not use their premium assets on it. So who knows? I mean, but they have interviewed enough guys that are going to go in the top 60, say, that, so it's not, to me, I'm not dismissing it entirely, but they're doing a lot of work, it seems, on the guys that are going to be picked late.
Jordan Watkins?
Yeah, that's a guy.
Not Antoine Wells Jr., also from Ole Miss? Okay.
Watkins is the guy I saw.
Jordan Watkins.
Yeah.
Burden, before we break, and we'll look for your calls next, Burden at Football Guys in the Rookie Draft Guide. Here, does this move you? Burden will perform in any system that needs an injection of talent. Do the Bills not need an injection of talent no matter what they've spent on other players? Do they not need an injection of talent at wide receiver? The reason I think I could say they don't is because, Allen exists, so who cares? Who cares who else is on the field? And I don't know. You can't just settle for that. 803-0550 for your calls next. Luke Fox, Sportsnet, with the Sabres hosting the Leafs tonight. We'll talk about the Sabre season and the playoffs. And also, Kevin Adams will join us at 5, pregame at 6 for tonight's game downtown. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, 803-0550. This is WGR.
We know
I think that this is a good draft for the Bills' needs, mainly because there's not a guy in this class, or there are very few guys in this class who really project to be that classic X receiver who's really fast and really big. But at the same time, you have a lot of guys who do a great job working longer horizontal breaking routes, who can then use their speed and be able to get yards after the catch, or guys who can do a little bit of everything. And certainly with the Bills, it seems like that's the profile they're looking for a lot of these talents.
Matt Waldman, recent visit to our morning show. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. The draft is a week from Thursday. Why do I have to tighten this?
I don't know. Mine never needs to be fiddled with.
I think I'm doing it like multiple times a day now. And what is changing that makes me need to tighten this like again in another 20 minutes? I don't know. I'm not doing anything else. Am I?
It's becoming habitual. I don't even know. It's like a tick now.
No, it might be, but it is loose when I do it.
Oh, okay.
So it's needed.
All right. I'm going to keep an eye on you and see how often you move it around.
All right.
Because maybe that's because I don't know. I don't feel like I jostle mine very much once we start. Put a force field around it.
Everyone, keep me honest here. Luther Burden on tax day, April 15th, is the closest I've come to, like, this is the player I want. I think the odds of it happening are very small, or maybe long is better. But unlike other receivers that get talked about as first-round picks, namely Tet McMillan and Matthew Golden, this guy's on the board. Maybe. Like, he's got a much better chance of being available to the Bills. Would they draft a receiver? It would be, it takes some nerve to do it. But isn't that, irrelevant, as we talked about earlier? Shouldn't it just be about what do you need relative to the strengths and weaknesses of the draft class? Depending on where you think the cutoff is at receiver. I think there have been 4 that have been in the first round much of the time, if not most of the time here this offseason, and everything else feels forced to me. Jaden Higgins, Jalen Royals, Trey Harris, these guys that are sort of like nothing against them or the analysts I'm speaking of, but seem like just sort of a little bit niche, like just, by the way, there's a guy at Utah State. This guy at Missouri was an absolute elite prospect, immediate difference maker in college. His team wasn't good. They say he didn't really evolve as a player, but in terms of tools, he's got it. And then your organization and coaches do the rest. So I don't know. Maybe he's even possible at 56 if people are down on him for whatever off-field reasons they might have. I'm kind of excited about him. And I'm enjoying it because I haven't really been excited about anybody. There's another new corner on one of the PFF mocks today. The guy we talked about for a day.
The East Carolina guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's his story again?
He hurt a torn ACL early in the season.
Okay.
But I like that idea plenty. I mean his athletic. He's 6'2", long arms. He's long, Mike. I think that works. If you trust that, he's healthy, and I would assume that, they're doing their work on that. So, of the corner ideas, I like that, and it seems like the Bills, and I don't know, maybe all the teams in the league are doing this, but they have met with, and I don't have a list. I should be keeping a database, but they've met with 3, 4, 5 guys who had injuries. There's a Notre Dame corner, Morrison, who they, I think, had in for a 30 visit or met. They've been tied to him, and that's another guy that was really good but had an injury and wasn't, just so he's being pushed down. Where the Bills are picking, it feels to me like maybe if either of those guys were healthy, they wouldn't see 30 or 56 even, maybe, but. Because they were dinged, maybe, and you can get them at a value, and if you hit that and they stay healthy, then you've done a really good job. So I'm all right with that idea too. Not that I want them to exclusively, be drafting guys who are coming off torn ACLs, but I think you can do well there if you're not scared of that.
Yeah, feels like sort of like it's Halloween. These corners and defensive linemen, and you go to a house and you get whatever, some sort of hard candy. It counts. It's in the bag. It helps fill the bag up.
Right.
You're not really excited about it at all. Whereas, I'm trying to think of the right, food example for a guy like this, where it could be amazing, but you don't know. You get a giant Reese cup or Three Musketeers or something. You know it's going to be good. Like, you can't know here in this. Mm-hmm. Absolutely jammed down your throat example, this metaphor. But something where, like, it could be amazing, maybe it's rotten.
You definitely don't want that.
What is Bean's footing with the Bills, as you see it, with the fans, like, overall? Is he fine? Is this draft maybe really important for him? I don't know. The Sabres don't make changes. So I can't even think seriously about the Bills making changes.
Riding 5 straight division titles.
Right.
I do feel like this offseason, I've had to remind people that I believe it's McDermott's show entirely, even though, the traditional hierarchy and the structure puts, the GM above coach. But I don't think that this exactly works that way, and I think there are a lot of examples in the NFL of that. It's more and more common, I think, that the coach is sort of like he's the CEO, and everyone else just sort of fills in around him. But I've heard more direct, pointed criticism of Bean, because of Kincaid not smashing and having a tough second year, and Coleman, and anything else you want here. Elam really is a big one. Talk about things you should be scared of doing, because how it's going to look. I mean, drafting a corner in 2025 after trading away Elam for spare parts is not going to look good. I mean, you're doing that because you missed on him. And so that has created the need. And so, the idea of not picking someone because of how it looks, recognizing that it's not 3 in a row like it would be at receiver, like we're talking last segment with Kincaid and then Coleman and now a third guy if they were to go that route. But if Bean is worried about how he looks, drafting a corner at 30 is going to shine a light on the miss on Elam from 4 years ago, I think.
Well, I know how you can avoid that.
Don't do it.
Draft Luther Burden.
Right. So, but your question is, what's his footing like? Like, how? I think he's taking more shots than normal, but I don't think anyone at all over there is in any trouble ever with anything. They got Allen right. And, the critics of both guys will want to tell you that was just luck and that the misses aren't luck. It's good luck that you drafted Allen, but it's not bad luck. You're just terrible at your job because you drafted Kyrie Elam, which really doesn't jive with me. That should work both ways. There is luck on both sides, and it just didn't go your way. In the case of Elam, he was perfectly finely thought of as a prospect to be drafted where the Bills drafted him. I think it just didn't work. And I don't know where the blame lies entirely in that, but they missed. I just don't ever really like dinging them for hits. If you're going to ding them for misses, you should credit them for hits, or you should just do none of it. But where does that leave you?
I don't know where it leaves us, because then we're just talking hockey all the time.
Right.
I think that's fair. I think it wasn't like it was in question at the time, but the best thing about drafting Allen, maybe, is that you were willing to draft a quarterback there. Like, that was the plan. And a lot of those Bills years came and went where they just wouldn't. They didn't have a good quarterback, and they still wouldn't pick one because they had to have that run stuffer. They had to have that linebacker. They had to have whatever it was, that corner. And you were just almost definitely going nowhere. So many teams still like this. The Steelers. The Steelers make the playoffs every year, and they're insufferable, and they're doomed. Like, what is that existence? And the Bills were below that. They couldn't make the playoffs at all, and they were doomed. So, yeah, I mean, Allen, of course, hit, to say the very, very least. But the starting point is they were willing to do it. And that was different from even the year before where they could have done it.
Right, even willing to do it, and they maneuvered themselves quite aggressively to make it happen. Like, they planned for it. Like Sal said it the day after the 17 draft when they didn't take Mahomes and they made the trade to move down and let the Chiefs take Mahomes, and they got Tre'Davious White. Sal said, they got paid for that, and they're going to use these assets to go get their guy next year. And that's exactly what they ended up doing. I mean, they moved up twice to make that happen. And so, they executed a plan, and, they picked the right guy, and it worked.
Cordy Glenn does not get enough credit for all of this.
Right, started the whole thing off.
He should be leading the charge next year for sure, that guy. Without him.
That got them 21. I think that got them to 21, and from there they moved up, I think.
7?
Is that right? I think that's right.
I want to say they started at 21 because they were wild card, and they moved up from there,
all right,
and then to 7,
maybe to 12. I've got 12 in my head for some reason too.
Maybe.
All right.
I feel like 21 would be about
that
9 and
sense.
7 last team in the playoffs. Be 21. Here's David with us. Hi, David.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not much. Just hanging out doing a radio show. How are you?
Work.
Very nice. I just wanted to comment on the Bean stuff. I mean, I think the Bean criticism this offseason and last offseason feels kind of unwarranted. You flip Benford and Elam, we're all saying that's a home run of a draft. You took a lot of other great players that draft. Kincaid and Coleman, both guys who are fighting through injuries. I think Bean's been very sharp. I think his draft class has been really good. I'll hang up and listen, but I have full confidence in that guy.
All right.
I don't like flip Benford and Elam. Like, I mean, they did their work, and they had a I don't know what grade they had on Benford, but I'm sure it wasn't a first-round grade. They picked them in the 6th round. So, good. You did your homework, and you hit on a guy late, and that's to your credit. But that doesn't absolve you of missing. You missed on the other pick. That's it. It's a miss. Benford hitting doesn't wash that away. Like, good players getting drafted in, like Matt Milano, who predates Bean. That was McDermott and Whaley, for what it's worth, right? The first year, that same 17 draft we were just talking about. It's the same thing. Like, it makes up for it. It gives you a great player that was worthy of an extension that you can count on, but it doesn't wash away the miss. The miss is still a miss.
I guess. I mean, I think I agree. Interesting to think that, like, so Elam is kind of an F, right? Like, they wouldn't put him on the field. They didn't trust him. Then they needed him right down to the playoff loss, and he just couldn't get the job done. And Benford's an A. If Elam is a C, does Benford ever play? Like, does he ever sort of get the chance to show what he's capable of? I think you'd like to think that he would, that he's showing in practice, or maybe there's an injury, right? Like, just sort of he would eventually be found. But I don't know. I mean, that's a different deal. The pressure that teams feel to play their draft picks. Because listen to us every day.
Yeah.
This is like your draft picks define you as a GM almost more than your record does. This is what you're expected to be good at, finding the good players and bringing them on and making it work. And if Elam is average, does Benford even ever get a chance to do anything? I don't know. But he was bad. And so they needed, it's not exactly linear. I mean, there were other players involved, and it's maybe likely that Benford is Benford, but it's not a sure thing. It's different if your first-round pick is good enough to stay on the field but not great.
It can happen that a guy would be blocked that way. You'd like to think that over the course of time here, maybe it doesn't happen that first season as quickly as it does, but by the second season, we got to find a way to get this guy on the field. Maybe they divest themselves of Tre'Davious White sooner or something, like whatever. But it's not a given because I'm sure that's how guys, get somewhere else on a second team and a fresh start, and it works.
Right. 803-0550, hockey at 4 with Luke Fox from Sportsnet. Sabres and Leafs downtown tonight. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
More of
Welcome back. We'll chat with Luke Fox of Sportsnet coming up in about 10 minutes. The Canadians last night lose in a shootout to Chicago. So that is still up for grabs.
Columbus is alive. Yes, they need to win tonight. Montreal is idle. I meant to look earlier. I'm not sure who they finish up with and when that is, but Columbus has 2 left. Montreal's only got the 1. So Columbus needs to win out and have Montreal get no
Lose
points.
in regulation.
Yes, right. Pretty great debut for that kid Demidov last night. Holy cow. Did you see any of the highlights of that?
No, but I did enjoy Cliff Corral for the 78 Blackhawks in the game I watched at the Forum.
Yeah, that's helpful. Make sure you bring that up when we talk to our next guest. Yeah, man, just a beautiful assist to set up, I think his second shift in the NHL. Just a beautiful, if this were Eichel making his debut, we would have been losing our minds. It was just a spectacular setup for a pretty easy goal for Newhook, and then he scored on maybe the shift or maybe the 2 shifts after that, whatever. He scored an assist and a goal early. It was looking like a legendary debut, a game that they need to win to make the playoffs, and it got away from them, obviously, and they didn't get it, as it turned out. But still was a great night for him. That debut was really impressive.
Bulldog, you besmirched the 78-9 Canadians. You're above that. This team won 4 cups in a row. This was the 4th of 4 straight cups.
What were there, 4 teams in the league?
It was at least double digits. This game against Chicago, they're up 3-1 mid-second. They lose 8-3 at home.
Try to work in a save.
Work in a save, Bunny LaRock. 8 goals on 31. I didn't really watch this game, but Darcy Rhoda had a hat trick.
Yep, sure. I'm excited for the Canadian teams to be in the playoffs.
I know. Montreal, I have years of damage from watching the Sabres lose to Montreal in the 80s and 90s, and I'll never reconcile that. It's 24 Stanley Cups to my 0. It's always going to be up here, down here. But you ask me Montreal or Columbus in the playoffs?
Come on. Right. Not even close.
It's not even a question.
Yeah.
Poor Columbus. I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Not their fault.
Right. And they were a great story in the league with the year they had, at least to start after the tragedy in the summer with the Gaudreau brothers. But yeah. So they're not an easy team to necessarily root against. I guess I want to say because of that, it's kind of pulls at the heartstrings. But Montreal, that scene there even yesterday, regular season game, but this kid's debut, it was bonkers. It was such a good watch. I was bummed out though. It was. I don't want to be too hard on myself. Amazon Prime has been doing a Monday night game in Canada all year long, and this was that game. So I did not get the TSN people. I got instead. I can't even think of the.
You got Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit.
Who was doing the play-by-play, but it was Jody Shelley was the analyst, and I don't know who the play-by-play person
Andrew
was.
Whitworth.
But it wasn't. Right. It wasn't what I was looking for. But still,
sadly.
That's where I spent my time last night.
I didn't really watch that game from 1978.
You just got the box open. You're just playing. Just playing the bit.
I watched a minute of it in here yesterday, and it was still up as one of my tabs. But I did. The first shift, Rajon Uhl was hitting people. I can tell you something that I saw from this game, and then I can tell you the stats. That's it. 78-9 Blackhawks Canadians. Luke Fox of Sportsnet might be in Buffalo for the game tonight.
He definitely is, yes.
Sabres Leafs. We will discuss the Sabres season and the NHL postseason coming up next. Kevin Adams joins us at 5 today, pregame at 6 for Toronto Buffalo. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
Night as they host the Toronto Maple Leafs. Pregame at 6 for a 7 p.m. puck drop. Not playing tonight, Owen Power. His injury appears to be serious, according to head coach Lindy Ruff. Ruff also said that Power is still being evaluated by team doctors. And Beck Mallenstein also will not go tonight due to an undisclosed injury. And with that, the Sabres have called up Isak Rosen to potentially play in his stead. In net tonight for the Sabres, it'll be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And before pregame, stay tuned, is at 5 o'clock. Sabres general manager Kevin Adams will join tonight's show. Now, in other games in the NHL, some notables. Columbus could make things interesting in the East with a win tonight versus Philadelphia. Game time also at 7. And if the Blue Jackets do win, they are still alive. But if they lose, Montreal will take that final wildcard spot in the East. Then at 8, playoff implications out west. Minnesota hosts the Ducks and St. Louis hosts Utah. Both Minnesota and St. Louis currently sit in the 2 wildcard spots. Calgary just behind them. They have Vegas in town at 9. Big shakeups coming the way of the Miami Dolphins. GM Chris Greer confirmed today the team will be parting ways with cornerback Jalen Ramsey, and they will be seeking a trade. They will not, though, be seeking a trade for wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders going to have a private workout with the Giants on Thursday. New York also is expected to have a private workout with Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. Milroe today is with Seattle. He's also expected to meet with the Rams ahead of next week's draft. The NBA play-in games start tonight over on TNT. First up, Orlando versus Atlanta at 7:30. Then at 10, it's the Warriors taking on the Grizzlies. The winners will become the 7 seed, while the losers will have to play again on Friday for a chance to become their conference's 8 seed. And then the Bisons, they fell to Syracuse today, 10-2. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
If you wrap foil around that, just like the little bit of the base part of the banana where the fruit is, wrap foil around that top and they will last longer.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Who needs your bananas to last longer, though?
Look, I don't want to go to the store every other day for bananas.
They're 8 cents each.
What the hell are you talking about? What is going on?
You're going to wrap them in foil?
They're better when they're just a little green. Yeah.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Too much work.
Not that much trouble. Too
much work.
Says the guy that's got a spreadsheet with 3,000 fantasy teams.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's very rude. You know you're in good in an argument when the other person resorts to attacking you instead of your take. Then there's a term for it. I don't know it. There's a term for it when they...
Winning? Is that the term? Winning the argument?
Losing.
Is that...
Losing is the term for it.
I think I killed you in that argument.
I was talking about bananas, and you were talking about my fantasy portfolio.
Well,
that was your comeback.
You brought work into it. You said it's too much work. And, like, you're devoting all... whatever. I stand by every word.
Okay. With us now, if he hasn't hung up, is Luke Fox from Sportsnet. Welcome to Buffalo, Luke.
Thanks. No, I life hacks, right? I didn't know that about bananas. So,
yes.
If you have any more tips, I'm only.
You don't want any more of his tips.
No, you don't. No, I'm an old person, Luke. That's not
wrapping bananas. I mean, what a waste of time. Well, to start with the Sabres, I think we should. It's 14 years, Luke. I don't know. Like you maybe not as far as Bulldog, but you go back. I mean, this is historic stuff, the Sabres. And as we are in the business of talking about it kind of all the time, it has really been at times confounding to explain their failures. I mean, they've had high draft picks who've been good players, or if not great. I mean, they've been through lots of people, lots of coaches. They haven't always just stood pat. But they cannot get off the ground here. Do you have a quick and easy explanation for it?
Oh, boy. I wish I did. I mean, I might have a job with the Sabres if I had an easy explanation for it. It's tough. It's hard to wrap your head around it, especially when you see, the list of ex-Sabres that go on and seem to have team success elsewhere and their careers take off. And now, this year it'll be Jeff Skinner getting his first taste of the playoffs. It'll be Dylan Cousins, in Ottawa, in a much hyped, looks like Battle of Ontario, getting his first taste in the playoffs. So, individually, there's been a lot of talented players that have come out of the organization during that drought. And I think the scary thing is they don't seem to be one quick move, one coach, and anything just away. It seems like multiple things. But there are still signs there, right? Like Tage Thompson had a really nice bounce back year, 44 goals, seems to be looking a lot more like the player we saw 2 years ago. Rasmus Dahlin is one of the best defensemen in the league. Like, he's such a good piece. And JJ Peterka's coming. Like, there are guys there. There are pieces there. There's just not enough of them yet. It's not like you're one trade away or a coaching change away, it feels like.
One of the confounding things about this season, Luke, is how excellent the Sabres have been scoring goals at 5-on-5. And yet the power play, with all that, they've got, to me, enough talent to fill certainly a top tier number one power play, if not, a second team as well. But they've been languishing on the power play for year over year now, which is really frustrating because there was a head coaching change, but mostly the assistants stayed the same, and the power play maybe. There's other culprits. The goaltending took a step back this year after Luukkonen finished so strong last year, so that's been a problem, and their overall defensive play. But, boy, if they had, 15 more power play goals maybe, I don't know, they might be in the race or in a spot.
Yeah, and you try to, I guess, draw optimism for some of the teams that have turned it around. Montreal looked like maybe behind Buffalo's program at times, and then all of a sudden, they're on the verge of getting a playoff spot. Washington barely made the playoffs, and then they're the top team in the East. So you maybe try to draw inspiration for some of these clubs that have had year-over-year dramatic turnarounds and gotten back in it. And that's something to build on. I was at the morning skates this morning, and that's exactly what Craig Berube was talking about. His team is obviously the favorite team. They're going for a division title tonight. All they need is 1 point. But he said, we got to be worried about the high-end skill that Buffalo has. We have to be worried about their power play that's clicking. We're worried about their scoring prowess. So that is something to build on. And got a chance to talk to Dahlin for a little bit, and he feels a bit encouraged, the fact that the last couple of months he feels like Buffalo's been playing more the right way. And I said, well, what's the right way? What does that look like? And he kind of chuckled and said, it's actually boring. It's boring hockey. And he said it's taken the young guys a little time to wrap their minds around the fact that maybe boring wins. Like, sometimes you got to dump it in when you got maybe a 50-50 play to try and create offense. It might be the smart thing just to dump it in, make a change, and live to fight another shift. But he seemed encouraged the fact that they're wrapping their minds around that. And it's been a lot of young guys, a lot of growing pains. And then it seems to be like when some of those guys finally get it, they're wearing a different sweater, or it's too late. And then you're bringing in more young guys. So I think it's going to be a fascinating offseason because there is cap space to play with. There are some picks. Like, there's ways that Kevin Adams can kind of refashion this roster. And so I'm curious to see what he does here.
If I could be so bored as to sleep through an entire regular season, but I'd wake up and they'd be in the playoffs, I would take it. The next year I'd complain. For 1 year I would take it. Just never have to watch a game. But they're all 2-1. We're back to like the Hasek years where the highlights were the Hasek saves, and that was kind of it. To go back to that. Well, I wonder, just to ask you one more thing about them, Luke. I mean, you're connected. And Adams played into this, unfortunately, I would say earlier this year, talking about palm trees and like the challenges of attracting people to the Sabres. How real is that for you? I mean, if I sound like a homer, so be it. This town has a tremendous history of supporting the Sabres and putting up with a lot of controversy. All their very best players seem to always ultimately want to leave. Like, still, Buffalo is a great hockey city. How real is it for you that whether it's taxes or 14 straight years without all of it, that the Sabres have like sort of a real obstacle in front of them to build a good team?
Well, I think the obstacle is the recent history of losing, of not being a contender. I don't buy the palm tree weather stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Edmonton in the winter.
Right. Winnipeg, anybody? Yeah, right.
It is pretty freaking cold, right? But you got Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl not only getting drafted there, but deciding to re-sign there long-term. They get to a cup final, and free agents want to go there. Guys, the guys reach a point where it's like, I want to win a cup, or I want to be on a team that has a chance to win a cup. I'm a believer, if you build it, they will come. And if it's one of the things, chicken and egg, what's going to happen first? The Sabres recruiting good players, or and getting good results, or the good results helping them get good players. But I do believe that this is cyclical, and that once the Sabres are a winning team, guys want to come here because you're dead on. Like, I know lots of people from Buffalo, and they love their Sabres. They're just disheartened, and understandably so, because they're smart hockey fans, so they realize that this team can't get it done, and it is discouraging.
Luke Fox from Sportsnet is on the Western Hotline. He's also in town with the Leafs in town looking to clinch the Atlantic Division. How's the ride been for Berube this year? I try to keep tabs, and I'm following you and reading your work and watching plenty of Leaf games on nights the Sabres aren't playing, and it seems like a different kind of team here, and maybe that was the intent by bringing Berube in here.
Well, it is absolutely the intent, because they didn't change the core of the team. It's the same all-stars you're used to, and that will now be taking a crack at it for the ninth spring in a row. With only one playoff series victory to show for it. So the big sell was, we're not going to make any changes, or we can't, to the core players. What we are going to do is try to bring in a couple better defensemen, and a coach who likes defensive hockey, views the game a little bit differently than Sheldon Keefe did. So the Leafs have changed their style of play. Harkening back to what I was telling you about Rasmus Dahlin today, it is a more boring style. And I've had Leaf fans complain, some of these games are kind of boring. Mm-hmm. And it's like Craig Berube would say, well, yeah, because that's the style he won a Stanley Cup with coaching the St. Louis Blues. He'd rather grind out a 2-1 or a 3-2 victory. The Leafs have played tons of one-goal games, and they've been on the right side of more one-goal games than any other team in the NHL, and that's because he doesn't want them trading chances. He feels like if they pack the house, keep the other team's offense to the outside, and if his game breakers, the high-end Leaf skill, can come through 2 or 3 times a game, that's enough to win them more games. And they're on the brink of the first Atlantic Division title they've ever had in history, which is crazy because they've had so many strong regular seasons, but they've never won the Atlantic. The only other time they won a division was the All-Canadian division a couple years ago when we were in lockdown. So the guys have really bought into Berube's style. Here's a stat for you. 13 different Maple Leafs have got a fighting major this year. That's the most in the NHL. Before Berube came here, this wasn't known as a fighting team at all. So it's a scrappier version of the Leafs.
Yeah, one player that really stands out as different, recognizing that Nyes was there already, but the breakthrough, like that's a piece that I just don't, to my eyes, recall the Leafs really having. Like that size, the physicality, the finish. I mean, you've got a force on a line there, a physical force on a line there with Matthews and Marner, and that seems to be really working.
Yeah, and he sees the game exactly the way the coach does. Straight lines, hard checking, go to the net, get rebounds, get tips, screen the goalie. He's a bit of a unicorn. I'm not saying he's Brady Tkachuk, but he's kind of heading in that direction in terms of a big power forward that has good soft hands around the net, can finish plays, but won't back down if a guy's cross-checking him in the back all night. He'll give it right back to them. He's one of a kind, guys, and he's a restricted free agent this summer. The Leafs will absolutely do everything in their power to lock him up. They might have to settle for a bridge deal depending on, what happens with Marner. But guys like this don't come around very often. A bunch of opposing teams called the Leafs about Nyes and would you throw him in a trade when they were looking to make some ads at the trade deadline. And Brad Treliving was like, no way. We're not trading this guy.
Right.
Guys like him don't come along very often. And the Leafs have had to plug a lot of their holes through free agency. They haven't had a lot of drafted and developed guys coming up. And he's one, and they are absolutely in love with the guy. He's a really special talent, and I think he's going to shine even brighter in the playoffs because he's built for that type of hockey.
You mentioned the future for Marner here, and this really blew up around the trade deadline when it became revealed that there was a trade in place for Rantanen, and Marner, basically killed it, and that, of course, put him in the crosshairs with the fan base, and now you've got, free agency approaching. I know it takes a backseat now because the playoffs are starting, but are you flipping a coin here? Like, what do you think happens with Marner?
Yeah, flip a coin. It's really that tight right now. I think there's a legitimate chance that he will walk. He's come this far, and once you've come this far, and his agent has, denied the requests on the Leafs side to try and engage in extension talks. Once you've come this far, why not take a peek behind the curtain and see what other teams want? What sort of package would Chicago offer a free agent like that? Considering they have Connor Bedard and they're getting antsy, much like this city in terms of finishing near the basement of the standings and wanting to take a step. You think about the disappointment in places like Seattle, or owner that's ready to spend in Utah that's trying to make a splash in a brand new market. There's so many teams that want to get their hands on Marner. And I think one of the big factors, both from Marner's side and from the Leafs side, will be, okay, you don't want to negotiate, you want to let things play out. Well, how does Marner look in the playoffs? How far do the Leafs go? If the Leafs fizzle in round one again, then I think that increases the chances that he walks. Whether it's his frustration with the state of the Leafs not breaking through, or whether it's Toronto's feeling that maybe we need a change beyond a coach, and maybe we need to break up this core four and take a different approach to crack through. And we don't want to pay him $13.5 or $14 million. And Marner can get that elsewhere because the cap's going up. Teams have budgets. Other GMs are feeling pressure to bring in a star player, and he's the top free agent if he gets that far. So there is, I honestly feel like there's a 50% chance that he's wearing a different sweater next year.
Luke, before you go, I noticed that this morning you tweeted the player poll question from which rule did they use in the Women's League that players might like to see used in the NHL. The winning choice was what's called the jailbreak goal, which is if you score shorthanded, your penalty is over. Alex Tuck has, 6 shorthanded goals? So we could benefit from that, but the season's almost over. I've been long for the first place teams that, by how they finish in the standings, choose their opponent because, secondly, it would be crazy fun. But, first it seems sort of kind of normal because the season is so long and the points rankings are usually so close. An injury happens. I think sometimes it can be unjust. What did you think of how this turned out, and do you have a favorite of your own?
Yeah, I do. I would like the jailbreak rule. I think that's kind of fun. It would encourage more teams maybe to take chances shorthanded and try to end it right there. Make for maybe a little bit more risky, wide-open hockey on the power plays from both ends. But my choice would be the first place picks their opponent. I would extend it to second place if they're not the ones chosen, also picks their opponent.
Yep.
You could do it like a little, even if it's like a less than a 30 minutes with 2 commercial break show.
Right.
and have the GMs go up there, have the captains go up there and call out who they want to play in the playoffs. I think it would just be the entertainment value for that would be great. And then the team that gets picked, it's like instant bulletin board material. Oh, you want us? Really? You want us? We'll show you type of thing. And might be many reasons. It could be like they pick them based on their regular season success against that team. Or it could be just geography, and they want to pick a team that's close and try and save on travel and wear and tear. Or maybe a team gets an injury right before the playoffs, a key injury, so then they get picked even though they're not the lower-ranked team. I just think it would add another wrinkle and a bit more fun to the playoff format, which for me has gotten a little bit stale. Some of these matchups, like the Carolina-Jersey matchup, seems like it's been in stone forever, and those teams are just kind of playing at the string. So I like that one.
Totally agree. Thanks for your time, Luke. Enjoy the rest of your time here in Buffalo today and tonight.
All right. Thank you. Already hit up Lenovo, so that was good.
Very good.
Good for you.
Luke Fox with us from Sportsnet, Sabres and Leafs with pregame at 6. It would be the best. I mean, half an hour. How about 3 hours? That show. Drag it out. I think so. You know, the Sabres are what they are, and we are a long ways from like plugging into the playoff possibilities here. But in a year where you have that, it's all we would talk about. It's all we would talk about is whether they would get picked, who is picking whom, is all we would talk about. And that itself, I think, is enough to make it that it should fly. Like that. If the NBA will get there first. I mean, somebody else, they'll get there and it'll never be hockey first. Somebody else will get there first. But it's so great. And I know what we've said every time about how the GMs, the teams would never have it.
They don't want that smoke.
They don't want the controversy. They don't want the target on their back, all that stuff. We don't have to care about that. Like, this shouldn't be, this should be the league's doing. And it does, like for the reasons Luke said, and others. There are times when you just get matched with somebody based on the smallest difference in the standings, but that team is hot. That team made moves at the deadline. The team in front of them didn't, whatever, and you would want to play the other team, but you can't. I mean, it doesn't work like that. I think it should. And if you want to just pick the team you would have played anyway, because you don't want any sort of extra?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Leafs can go ahead and pick Ottawa, or they'd probably pick, well, I don't know. That would be the lowest points team available.
Them or Montreal.
Yeah, and Washington would pick Montreal.
Probably, yeah.
But, Jersey without Hughes.
Right.
What is the problem? Well, we just said.
Yeah.
The problem is the people would not want to have their names on it. I think it's so good, though. Someday, I hope. 803-0550. Speaking of the Sabres and the game tonight, Kevin Adams will join us at 5. Lines are open for you next. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
We know you can't
Buffalo Sabres game night tonight as they host the Toronto Maple Leafs pregame at 6 for a 7 p.m. puck drop. No Owen Power tonight as his injury appears to be serious, according to head coach Lindy Ruff. Ruff did also mention that Power is still being evaluated by team doctors. And Beck Malenstein, he is also a no-go tonight due to an undisclosed injury. And with that, the Sabres have called up Isak Rosen. While in net tonight, it'll be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Do stay tuned, though, and coming up in just about a half hour at 5, Sabres general manager Kevin Adams will join the show. Big shakeup coming up for the Miami Dolphins. GM Chris Greer confirmed today the team will be parting ways with cornerback Jalen Ramsey. They will be seeking a trade. They will not be doing that, though, with wide receiver Tyreek Hill. In the draft, quarterback out of Colorado, Shedeur Sanders is going to have a private workout with the Giants on Thursday. Giants will also have a private workout with Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. And today, Milroe is with the Seahawks and will later be also meeting with the Rams. And then the NBA playing games start tonight over on TNT. First up, Orlando versus Atlanta at 7:30. Then at 10, the Warriors take on the Grizzlies. The winners will become the 7 seeds, while the losers will play again on Friday for a chance to be the conference's 8 seed. And then the Bisons, early afternoon baseball for them. They do fall to Syracuse today, 10-2. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
There's so many teams that want to get their hands on Marner. And I think one of the big factors, both from Marner's side and from the Leafs side, will be, okay, you don't want to negotiate, you want to let things play out. Well, how does Marner look in the playoffs? How far do the Leafs go? If the Leafs fizzle in round 1 again, then I think that increases the chances that he walked. Whether it's his frustration with the state of the Leafs not breaking through, or whether it's Toronto's feeling that maybe we need a change beyond a coach.
Our guest from just earlier, Luke Fox of Sportsnet. Leafs and Sabres, game 81 for the Sabres tonight. Pregame at 6 with Paul. We'll talk to Kevin Adams at 5.
Did you follow that during you weren't here for trade deadline day. So I don't know if you missed it. You were back shortly, right after that, though. The Marner stuff was kind of incredible. Like it's one of those things that almost never happens in sports, where a guy that's got the no trade, it has happened, but it's just, for a player of that magnitude in that market, like, we've got to trade for another superstar player that we're willing to sign for big money to keep him here, and but you got to waive your no trade. Nope. Man, that's got to be such a tough place to be for everybody involved, but the player especially to be the one who says no, because now you got to come through, and if you don't, staying there is it's putting yourself in a hell of a spot. But you negotiate that right. So he's well within his rights to do what he did, but man, it's got to be tough to deal with the repercussions of that.
Yeah, I would think.
I was just walking around the halls here during the break thinking about Marner and his pending free agency. And do the Sabres even have a meeting about it?
That's a good question.
Right? Like, do they even, let's put a proposal together. Like, does that even get off the ground? Or do they just go, no, there's no way this guy's going to come here anyways? Even if we give him, I don't know, whatever, like more like the max we can possibly give him. I'm not even sure what that number is. It just seems like a team in the spot where the Sabres are, it's just such a tough. It feels like the Bills during the drought.
I was going to say, like, you should have a meeting about it. Even if it's depressing, you should have the meeting. And then if it ends up being like, we can't, so let's just not embarrass ourselves here.
Right.
Something like, when Pagula bought the team, it was Brad Richards, and they went after guys to their credit, but, it didn't really happen. With the Bills, I was thinking of them, too. It reminds me of Peyton Manning. At least this is how I was. When Peyton Manning came up, I didn't give it 5 seconds of thought. The Bills can't get Peyton Manning on the team. Should they have had a meeting? Yes, they should. Maybe they did. Right. They should have had a meeting. Right. But in my mind, there was no way.
You are not pulling that fish into the boat. No, right. And that's a very good it's good enough comparison. I mean, quarterback versus a high-scoring winger, whatever. But it works. Like, he is a superstar in the league that you have plenty of money, you have plenty of room to fit him in, give him anything he wants, but, And then that would have been true with Manning whenever that was. Yeah. It's just tough, man. It's such a tough place to be.
Well, we asked Luke Fox about the Sabres and their reputation and just like where that's at. And he said he thinks it's just the losing. Right? It's not palm trees. It's not taxes. It's just the losing, I guess. I mean, it wouldn't have to be that for everybody. But you have 32 teams now. I would think places like Seattle and Las Vegas and Utah, we don't have Phoenix anymore, would be just obviously appealing to a lot of players. And you have Florida after Tampa. Tampa became kind of a dynasty almost, but now Florida's a cup winner 2 years in a row in the finals. That's different. That used to be like the Thrashers, or a team where they were just sort of there, and if you wanted to play for Florida, you could, but you were never going anywhere.
You were kind of going to be accused of like taking a retirement tour or something, like when Nieuwendyk and Gary Roberts went there. Maybe not Roberts, but Nieuwendyk, I know, went there.
I think maybe both.
Yeah.
Like, it just was not a serious thing. You weren't going there to win. Now you can go to Florida to win. You can go to the places I mentioned. Vegas has won. Seattle's been to the playoffs. Utah's brand new. But I think, what did Luke say about Utah? Like, they're ready to spend.
The owner's going to go for it? Sure. Sneaky Joe just texted me. $19 million is the 20% of the cap is what the max contract can be, according to Joe. If I read the text right, so $19 million would be that's as far as you could go. If you wanted to go there, if your owner wanted to go there, you've got the cap room. I still see no way the Sabres could pull that off.
Wouldn't.
Right.
That's how I feel. Kevin Adams coming up at 5. Some good Sabres questions right now, like just what this offseason will be. Powers injury means something, anything, or no, to what happens with him? I mean, he's under contract long term.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't I would not have thought that there was anything to be done with him this offseason anyways. I don't have to be right about that, but I would be inclined to just want to keep going with him. But the injury certainly will impact what he can do here and how soon he can get into off-season training mode and all that. Any fans out there that are hoping to see him, put on some muscle and become more of a harder player physically, I mean, that's going to be impacted. I mean, it depends how serious a thing this is, but. I think I read one report that indicated if the season is mid-season, he'd be week to week. So I don't know that it's devastating, but we still don't really know. I guess we haven't heard details on that, on what the severity is, sprain, torn, like where we are. But it looked bad. I mean, the way he fell was tough.
If it's an ACL, is it into next season? 6 months?
6 to 9 months. I mean,
it would be.
Yeah.
Football, it can be like a year. Diggs had an ACL, and maybe not. He's ready for week 1. Right. That was in October.
Yeah, I feel like 9 months is, that's a reasonable enough timeline. Guys beat it. Some guys, come back but aren't themselves. So there's always that too. I think maybe we just lived that with Jack Quinn. Not that he ever had a torn ACL, but he had a torn Achilles and another leg injury. And this year, I don't think it was really until like a month ago he looked at all like the player that he was before the injuries. So it can take some time, and that's something that Power, if it is that severe, again, we still don't really know. Maybe in 25 minutes or so, Kevin Adams will give us some info on that if they have more info on what exactly the timeline is with that injury or what the severity of the injury is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that I mean, his immediate future, what Josh Norris, like where are we there? I mean, there's going to be a whole offseason. I want to hope he'll be healthy for opening day next year, but holy cow, a guy with an injury history shows up, plays 3 games, and that's it. Holy cow, that's tough too.
Yes. Bulldog, are you in the Dynasty Orphan Streets. There are a few dozen of those teams available at FFPC. I don't know if you've been looking at those because the prices change every day. They try to make it more and more enticing for guys like yourself to jump into a new league.
Well, I guess I haven't really gone league shopping at this point, Mike. So
not that many times.
Can't say. Yeah, but not that many times is a. I mean, that's accurate. Not that many. By not that many, you mean zero. And I've never ever one time even considered thinking about it.
Yeah.
Was that enough? Was that definitive? Did I leave any wiggle room there for myself?
No, no, I understand. Yeah, I wanted to make sure you knew.
Okay, well,
that was a thing you could do.
I appreciate that.
You've got all that Thompson money,
right?
Wouldn't you want to take on stop wrapping bananas and take on a couple of challenges out there?
That Thompson money is not that. It's not gone, but it's not. It's in the bank account. It is not playtime money anymore. It immediately was extracted, and most of it. I had left a little to fiddle around with. I mean, the Masters was coming up. I needed to have a little bit of fun.
And now it's the draft. I still haven't made that drive.
Yeah.
What would you do about Shedeur Sanders? What's your prediction?
I think if he gets picked in the first round, it will be by a team that comes back in. You know, like the way the machine works, it's so funny today. It's like, he's visiting the Giants. That means maybe he's in consideration at 3. No. I mean, it could, I guess. Theoretically, like, it doesn't have to be 100%. No way that could. But come on, that would blow my mind. As important as quarterback is, I feel like, and as much as you wouldn't want to take a chance if you really like a guy, but I think it's way more likely that a team like the Giants or a team like who else? Cleveland, right? That they look at a team like the Bills or someone else around them into 25 to 32 at the end of the first round and see what the prices are like, see what kind of appetite there is. I would even bet that those teams have already been in touch with the teams that are in that region of the draft. Like, hey, boards are getting put together, whatever. Just want to get a feel. Do you think you might be open to doing something if we want to? That kind of thing, laying groundwork. I think if he goes in the first round, it's something like that. I do not think the Saints are going to take him at 9. Maybe the Steelers could do it at 21 without having to move a muscle. Just sit there and just do it. Especially if they still don't end up with Aaron Rodgers, which they've been sort of hedging their entire offseason on at this point, and the draft is a week from Thursday. So, I mean, holy cow, time's running out here. So maybe there, but I would bet on him not getting picked until Friday.
Should the Saints pick Sanders? I think no, but I wouldn't hate it for them if they did it.
I mean, I don't believe in him, but I didn't believe in Bo Nix. And Bo Nix looked just fine with Denver. Maybe even better than fine. I don't. Where are we on how fine is defined?
Playoffs.
Right. So, Sanders could work. But I don't know, man. I'm worried about him as an NFL player.
I'm going to stay sort of agnostic about it because there's so many of these guys where we're wrong. But still, I think the feelings about him are kind of so just neutral or not negative, but not positive as like a high first-round pick at all.
Right. It all feels like he's okay.
Then, like, if that's right, I don't think the Saints would get him at whatever their second-round pick would be, like 40. I doubt they would get him at 40. But they could get someone about as good at 40. Dart or Milrow, somebody like that. And the Saints are long overdue to back up. And, of course, there's an easy argument that you're nowhere without a quarterback. Here's a chance to get one. He's talented. Just do it. Maybe that's what happens. I don't think that would be crazy. But I kind of think there's a way to do better. I think they could do better. I think they could pick some edge rusher or some good player at 9 and still get a quarterback at 40, if that's the number, that they would have real plans for that would be about the same. So it sounds like EJ a little bit. It sounds like, it's just not great.
Right.
But Will Levis, but you do kind of have to try, or else why exist? And that's where they're at, I think.
Yeah, I would want a team that I care about to pass on Sanders and hope that I can get Milroe at 40. But I just think the upside is so, the bus factor is also higher, I suppose, right? Like Sanders probably will be like a certain level of okay. And if that's what you're looking for, like, okay, then, maybe that'll get it done for you. Milroe to me is just, he's either going to smash eventually, I don't think right away. So it depends on what do you need? You need a guy to come in and play right away? That's not going to be Milroe, but man, I would want to wait and just try to get my hands on him.
Todd McShay in his mock draft today had Milroe going 23rd to the Giants after a trade up. The fourth quarterback picked, with Dart going 9 to the Saints, and Sanders going 15 to Cleveland after a trade, something like that. Then Milroe. So 4 quarterbacks in the first round, 2 receivers in his mock draft today. 803-0550, Sabres and Leafs downtown. Pregame at 6. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR. Now caller 5 at 716-221-4WGR wins a pair of lawn tickets to see Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace at Darien Lake Amphitheater September 17th, courtesy of Live Nation. Tickets are on sale at livenation.com. Kevin Adams coming up in about 10 minutes. It is Jackie Robinson Day. Where's your number 42 jersey? I don't see you wearing one. You're supposed to wear one.
It's been
Jackie
retired.
Robinson. That's funny.
All across baseball.
Never mind then.
I take that kind of thing very seriously.
Then somehow, how do they get all these 42s out on the field every year?
I don't know. These people have no respect for the tradition, I guess.
Fun little stat thing from a game on Saturday with the Giants and the Yankees.
Okay.
Giants might have been up 8-1 through 5. They bat in the top of the 6th at Yankee Stadium. They score a run. The game is stopped by weather and never resumed. It's called 9-1. Two things I saw from a Twitter account called Scoring Changes. One is that I think they were implying this. I think this is right. Most people think like that 6th inning wouldn't count because it wasn't completed.
The Yankees didn't bat in the bottom of the 6th.
Right? Not so. Because the run didn't matter to the outcome of the game. So they count the stats from the top of the 6th. There was no bottom of the 6th. The Giants win 9-1. I think that's the score. The other is that the Giants starting pitcher, Robbie Ray, came out after 4. This happens more and more often. I had Bybee the other day in fantasy, 4 2/3. They win 7-0. Got to go 5.
Yeah,
you know that.
To get the win, yeah.
To get the win as a starter, you got to go 5. Not so. Because here he goes 4, but in this case, there's a certain rule where it can be, it's a judgment.
The game is shortened.
Yes. With the game being shortened, there was a judgment. I think there maybe always is a judgment. But anyway, it was decided that he would be the winning pitcher despite only pitching 4 innings, which has only happened 5 or 6 times in history.
Do you have him on one of your fantasy teams?
No.
No, that's too bad.
I have one fantasy team in baseball for money. It's terrible. I'm so upset. Devers, Freddie Freeman, Chris Sale getting bombed start after start. I don't think it should be bad. I don't have a lot of power. Like I should be bad in home runs, probably, but I'm just baffled. I'm so bad.
Can you sell off and rebuild? Is that
there aren't really trades in this league because nobody really knows what the draft picks are worth.
Yeah,
like there's just no there. I'm just frustrating. I don't have Robbie Ray. I could have used the cheapie from Saturday.
Yeah,
I have Bybee who went 4 2/3 and got nothing.
Should have been a judgment on that.
Where was the judgment?
Where's the judge? Come on, Judge.
Come on. I don't have Judge either. Doesn't help to not have him. Kevin Adams after sports here on WGR.
Caller Date.
Pregame in just about an hour as the Buffalo Sabres host the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight for a 7 p.m. puck drop. No Owen Power, as his injury appears to be serious, according to head coach Lindy Ruff. Ruff did also say that Power is still being evaluated by team doctors. Also missing tonight, Beck Mallenstein, due to an undisclosed injury. And with that, the Sabres have officially called up Isak Rosen from Rochester. Well, in that tonight, it'll be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And stay tuned, as coming up next, Sabres general manager Kevin Adams will join the show. 9 other games tonight in the NHL. Columbus could make things interesting in the East with a win tonight versus Philly. Game time also at 7. If the Blue Jackets win, they'll stay alive. But if they lose, Montreal will take the final wild card spot in the East. In the NFL, big shakeups coming for the Miami Dolphins. GM Chris Greer confirmed today that the team will be parting ways with cornerback Jalen Ramsey. They will be seeking a trade. The team, though, will not be doing that with wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders is set to have a private workout with the Giants on Thursday. The Giants also expected to have a private workout with Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. Milroe before that is going to meet with Seattle today and then the Rams. And the NBA play-in games start tonight over on TNT. First up, Orlando versus Atlanta at 7:30. Then at 10, the Warriors will take on the Grizzlies. The winners will become the 7 seed, while the losers will play again on Friday for a chance to be their conference's 8 seed. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Welcome back. It's game 81 for the Sabres tonight. 2 home games to finish it. Tonight, Toronto. Thursday, Philadelphia. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Pregame with Paul Hamilton at 6 right now. Joining us on the West Her Hotline, Sabres GM Kevin Adams in advance of this final week of the regular season. Kevin, thanks as always for your time.
No problem. How you guys doing?
Okay. I would think you can certainly, I hope you do, tell me if you think I'm wrong. The end of the season like this, there would be a few different feelings, like maybe certainly disappointment, maybe exhaustion a little bit, and maybe also a little bit of eagerness to get to work on the off season. How do you look at it?
Yeah, it's probably all of the above, to be honest. Very disappointing the way this season played out. I fully expected us to be right there in a playoff spot or competing, and feel that we should have been based on, the talent on our roster. So it's disappointing. The exhausted part's probably right because, it takes a toll, I'm not just on me, but everybody in the fan base and everybody in this town when the team isn't performing at the level that, is expected. So in saying that, you have to look in the mirror, and I do that. I start with myself and what do we need to do? What do I need to do? And how do we fix some of the issues that need to be fixed, and how do we make the team better to be prepared for next season to not be in this spot?
I know you went pretty long on this about a month and a half ago at the deadline with some reporters in Florida, looking at, being reflective about what went wrong, when did it take the wrong turn or whatever. Now we're that much closer to the end. You guys were still alive at that time, and now you, of course, have been eliminated now. When you think about it, have any of your thoughts changed from 6 weeks or so ago to now as to what you could have done? Where did it all sort of unravel for you?
Yeah, it's interesting, and some of this will be taking a deeper dive, in the off season. But you start with the 13-game winless streak. It's really tough to recover from and chase points the rest of the way. And what was interesting though, and I've thought a lot about this, should I have done something during that stretch to try to jumpstart our team? Could I have made a trade? Could I have maybe, do something in Rochester? And, that's where, when I say I look in the mirror first, I'll take responsibility. What was interesting when I went back and looked at the 13 games, within a couple little tiny percentage points, but basically we were plus or even in 6 of those 13 games, in terms of expected goals. So you're talking about a stretch where, 7 of them we didn't, probably on paper should have lost, and 6 of them, right, either overtime or wins. And, and end up where we ended up was disappointing. So when when I'm looking at that stretch, there was a lot of games early in the 13 that we played pretty well. We just found ways to lose. And so that's where I guess then as the streak went on, kind of you get into towards, 8, 9, 10, 12 games, all of a sudden it's just the mountain got bigger and bigger to climb. And that's the frustrating part. But it wasn't like the team was just terrible during all of those games.
Right.
So that's the hard part. But yeah, if I'm being honest, I thought we would probably have come out of that. We had games where we were up and we found ways to lose, and we were, you guys know it was not like something I've ever experienced before. So it was frustrating. But yeah, for sure, I would have done it differently. Maybe I would have made a change. Just even if it was calling up a player, or do something just to change the dynamic of the group up a little.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, don't we know it, Bulldog? That's easy to say. Do something.
Right.
Right? But I'm thinking of 2 games in that stretch. I think it's Colorado and Detroit. 2 home games where you had leads. You had 4-0 on the Avs. You had
5-3 in the
late
third. Yeah.
on Detroit. And then after that, what do you think maybe, as you say you've thought about this a lot, it's certainly like the cluster of the season where it got away. Do you feel like the mental side of things really did work on guys there because of how like you kind of said already, the losses pile up and maybe a hockey player just kind of doesn't know what to do?
Yeah, I think yes, I do think that happens, and it can almost become this like, how do we get out of this? And you start squeezing the stick. But, I think what the maturity level needs to improve on is that if you can separate the emotion of it and say, okay, you know what, we played really well and we did all the right things. We didn't win the hockey game, but if we continue to play like that, we're going to win. And we probably weren't mature enough during that time to be able to handle that type of mentality. And then we started maybe we started cheating a little bit more. We're trying to outscore teams instead of play the right way. Obviously, Darlene got hurt during that. There was just a lot of factors in there. I know the guys care, and maybe sometimes you got to separate from the emotion. It's really hard because you want to focus on the process and you want to do things the right way to set yourself up to win. But ultimately, every night you either win or you lose, and that's the results matter. So it's easier said than done. But I think that's a step that if we could learn as a team to be a little bit more mature, I think is really important.
With Kevin Adams here on WGR, as far as the future goes, Kevin, can you say now whether Lindy Ruff will be back?
Yep, Lindy will be back, and I just think that Lindy is he's got so much experience, and he has built up. I think it takes time, for coaches just to learn personalities and what makes players tick and which buttons to push, and I think he's in a good spot there with our group. And I know Lindy is frustrated. He'll have his own self, reflection and evaluation on what he thinks he could have done better. And we'll be having a lot of those conversations, the two of us, also sitting down with Terry and going through everything. But no, I fully expect Lindy to, be better in the areas that he thinks he could be better in, and make sure we're in a different spot next year.
I want to, if I may, add to why I wanted to ask you that. I mean, one, I guess it has to be fair when the team is out of the playoffs. What's the future of the coach? That would happen anywhere. But I'm thinking about before the season, and I wondered, meeting him as he returned, and there was that event at the arena where he talked about at first he wasn't sure he wanted to do it. I wondered about his energy level. Like, if you told us he wasn't back, I would think maybe that would have been his decision, just based on how he sounded at the beginning of the year. How have you found that to be? Was that all just sort of a misread, or did that change over the course of the year? Like, is he, I would think you're going to say yes, but like, does he have the energy for another push at this?
Well, yeah, there's no question. I mean, I guess if after game 82 he told me he was exhausted, there's different, but like he has a burning desire to make sure the Buffalo Sabres become a successful team. This is just as much as personal it is with me in this job, and growing up here and being from Western New York, it's extremely personal for Lindy too, because he spent such a big chunk of his professional career, with the Buffalo Sabres. So he wants nothing more than to get this thing going the right direction, and I believe he's. For me, he's as energetic and passionate about the game as he was when I coached with him, over 10 years ago. So I have no concern on that.
Recognizing that the season is not completely over yet, what sort of mindset will you have going into the offseason to avoid what would become a 15th consecutive season out of the playoffs, Kevin? Like, you made a significant trade at the deadline, moving Cousins for Norris and Docker, and Norris has only been able to play 3 games. I'd like to get some update on him if time allows here, but what do you think is called for here? Like, are there multiple big moves to be made? Is it patience because we still got young guys? Like, where do you think the hockey department will be pointed when we get to June and July?
Well, I think it starts with you have to ask the right questions and be honest with the answers first to truly diagnose what the issues were and how do we fix them? I mean, I've said to you guys before, we will do anything and everything to make this team better, whether is that making changes, trading players, whatever that means, that we will do. But you don't just do them to do them. They have to make sense, and I think when I look at our season, there's some really obvious things that jump out to me, and I'll go deeper into this, certainly when I meet with Terry after the season and kind of set our, how we go from here into the off season. But we have to improve defensively. We just have to be better defensively, and that doesn't just mean the defensemen. That just means overall the way we play. And that ties right into goaltending. It's easy to look at the goaltending and say, okay, we need to do better. And yeah, I think both our guys would be the first ones to say, we need to be better. But that's also tied into how we play in front of them. And defensively, I'm a big believer our special teams are just absolutely have not been good enough in terms of, think of the points in the standings if you get into a top 10 power play and penalty kill and what that can mean at the end of the day. So that's an area that we'll really try to understand why we are where we are there. I do think we need to be overall harder to play against, and I would classify as a big term, but just competitiveness, right? Like competitiveness there's so many layers underneath that, but that's puck battles, that's block shots, that's sticking up for your teammates at the right time. So we've been good in pockets, but we need to be better. And probably the last thing that comes to mind, and just in terms of your question is, we got to get to the net. We got to make it harder on the other team's goalies. We got to get more. You just look at the league. You look at the way some of the teams play, and they get to the puck to the point, and they got 2-3 guys in the goalie's face and crashing the net and rebounds. We need more of that, and I think that's not a talent thing. That's just a mindset, and we need our players to buy into that. So those are the areas that right off the top of my head I can give you, and we'll take a deep dive and look. And if there's ways to improve in those areas, we're going to make changes to do it.
You mentioned goaltending there, and at this time last year, I think Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen was one of the stories of the season, a positive story. It looked like he'd broken through, got the contract extension, and this year's been, uneven enough that James Reimer was playing the majority of the games here running up to the end of the season here. And I think you know me well enough to know that I'm a former card-carrying member of the goalie union here with a goalie kid, so I'm sympathetic to the goalie and other things contributing to their struggles. But he hasn't had the year he had last year. If you just look at him singularly, what do you think went wrong for him, if that's not too sloppy a way to phrase it?
Yeah, it's a great question and a fair question. I think part of it, I'm not dodging the question with the answer, but part of it does tie into our defensive play in front of them. There's a correlation to that. You look at the top teams and how structured and disciplined they are in the way they play defensively. Winnipeg comes to mind, obviously, and goaltenders, and they have great goalie, but their goaltender numbers are good. And so, I think that's step one. And then step two is, okay, there is a lot of variability year to year with goaltenders. There's very few guys that you can just say every year they're just put them up on the board, top 5 guys in the world. So you're going to have a little bit of that, especially with younger guys, and that UPL still is. So I still firmly believe UPL can be a top 15 goalie in this league. I have no doubt in my mind. Is there areas of his game to clean up a little bit and work on in the summer? For sure. But I think I have full confidence he'll do that. And then I think the other part is we need to be better in front of him, and I do think it goes hand in hand.
With Kevin Adams, Bulldog mentioned Norris. Kevin, what's the deal? What is his outlook here? I'm guessing he's not playing this week. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, super disappointed, mostly first of all, for him and our fans, because it would have been nice for him to be able to play, whatever many games that was after the trade deadline and really kind of establish the player he is and what he can mean to this franchise and our fans to get excited about him. And obviously it didn't happen. We knew this, first of all, the trade or the injury is nothing to do with the shoulder, and what he'd been through in the past. This was an injury that he dealt with, that he had in Ottawa, that he missed some time. Admittedly said he probably tried to get back a little bit too early before the trade deadline. We knew about it, but as soon as he got here, and then the MRI was done, and he he re-injured it, I think, in game 2 or 3 after he started playing. And it was, a 6 to 8 week timeline. So if we were a playoff team, I think he's right on the cusp of coming back. In fact, maybe right now, or if the playoffs were starting in a few days, potentially be in the lineup. So the good news is he's going to be. This was a soft tissue thing. This isn't something that needs surgery. He's going to be healthy. He'll have a good summer, and we have big expectations. And we would have made that trade anyways. This wasn't about just this stretch, but I am disappointed for him and the fans, like I said.
While we're on injuries, Owen Power, all we know is that it's at least somewhat serious. Do you have any more news to shed on exactly what happened to him and what kind of timeline? And is there concern that could bleed into training camp and the start of next regular season?
No concern there, but it does look like a fairly significant injury. He is going to New York City Thursday to get a second opinion. But this is, it's a significant injury in the sense that he would definitely, if the season was, if this was November, he'd be missing some time. What the question is now, guys, is does he have surgery? And then that could extend a little bit of his, timeline. Or is this a situation where he can rehab and avoid surgery, which, would potentially would get him back quicker? Now, based on the timeline, he should be back and fully 100% ready to go regardless. So it's not totally relevant for next season. It's more just about how to treat the injury. And that's why I say, when I do my end of the season press conference, so I think on whatever day that is, Friday or Saturday, I'll have a better definitive answer on exactly the timeline and exactly how, the decision that's been made.
This is maybe, feel good and bad about it given the ultimate result for the team, but you did get another 2 world-class seasons out of Dahlin and Thompson here. Yeah, we did. And, these are guys that are, I give credit to these guys where they're playing at an elite level night in and night out. And it's frustrating from a statistical standpoint to see the season that they've had, yet where we are in the standings. So that's something that, I'm certainly going to talk to them about after the season and say, how do we make sure we're not in this position? But no, it's been nice to see, and out of both those guys playing at the level that they are right now.
Another guy that's had a fantastic season and has played every game so far is Alex Tuck. And he's eligible for an extension when we get to July. Have there been any conversations, any early ideas about what that might look like for you?
No, we haven't had any of those conversations yet, but, I think Alex is one of these guys that critically important to our team and, plays in every situation, typically leads our forward group in minutes every night, and has played at a really, really high level this year. So, those are conversations that I certainly will have, talk to him. You guys have heard me say this before. You always want to find out exactly where the player's at and what are they looking long-term and all that. But he's been such an important player for us on and off the ice, so we certainly hope we have him a long time.
Kevin, thanks for your time today, as always, and all season. Sorry it didn't end better, but 2 games to go here. Good luck tonight and Thursday.
Okay, guys. Thanks. Take care.
You're welcome. You too. Kevin Adams, Sabres GM, on the West Her hotline. If you missed it, he said, just sort of matter-of-factly, Lindy Ruff back next year. And also on Norris, that the injury, this was the speculation, I think it was mine, when they changed it on the injury report. Like, it wasn't upper body or shoulder or anything specific like that. It was, for a minute there, undisclosed, which I thought was kind of weird. Like they were trying to figure it out maybe. But then middle body.
Right.
So not even hockey can call shoulder middle body.
I don't think you can get away with that.
I don't think you can.
No. Unless somebody has such a big head.
Sure. I guess.
That doesn't really make sense either. Yeah, I'm sorry. It left us here.
It's another Sabres season where it's just like not obvious what the next thing is. But he's always been like this with us. He did also pretty bluntly, like, better defensively and more physical, more willing to attack around the net. A couple of areas where he thinks they should be better, and I think those are both right. 803-0550 if you want to jump in. We'll have pregame at 6 with Paul Hamilton. Sabres and Leafs tonight, downtown. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
Sabres pregame coming up in 30 minutes as they host the Toronto Maple Leafs, a 7 p.m. puck drop. No Owen Power today. His injury does appear to be serious, according to head coach Lindy Ruff. Ruff, though, did say Power is still being evaluated by team doctors. Beck Mallenstein also a no-go tonight due to an undisclosed injury. And with that, the Sabres have recalled Isak Rosen. And then in net tonight, it's going to be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Big shakeups coming for the Miami Dolphins. GM Chris Greer confirmed today the team will be parting ways with cornerback Jalen Ramsey. They will be seeking a trade, though the team will not be doing the same with wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders is going to have a private workout with the Giants on Thursday. Giants also expected to have a private workout with Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, but before that, Milroe is meeting with Seattle today and then the Rams following that. And then the NBA play-in games start this evening on TNT. First up, Orlando versus Atlanta at 7:30. Then at 10, the Warriors take on the Grizzlies. The winners will become the 7 seeds, while the losers will play again on Friday for a chance to be the conference's 8 seed. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Looked at the 13 games, within a couple little tiny percentage points, but basically we were plus or even in 6 of those 13 games, in terms of expected goals. So you're talking about a stretch where, 7 of them we didn't, probably on paper should have lost, and 6 of them, right, either overtime or win.
Sabres GM Kevin Adams just before on WGR. Is he wrong? I mean, statistically he's not, but that's the part of the year where it got away from the Sabres, and even with their being pretty good here, really for more than a month, it hasn't been enough to get them even really that close to a playoff spot. I think the thing, Luukkonen, I think the thing this year is the power play, to me. It's frustrating, to put it mildly, that with the talent they have and a new coach, that the power play was pretty much still terrible. I feel like that's coaching and talent, and they have talent.
Right.
So, I don't think they were unlucky on the power play. They maybe were unlucky in some of those games.
Sure,
that happens.
Maybe, yeah. But, yeah, I think their tendency during that stretch, the games that really hurt them, the significance of blowing a 4-0 lead against Colorado, that's a game where they really looked panicked when it started to go against them. I would say the same thing about the Detroit game, 2 games that came up specifically while we were talking to Kevin. And, those things don't really have anything to do with whether your power play is good or even how good your goalie is. It's just whether you've got enough experience and enough players who can just keep it level. Just keep playing. And it can be hard, like you said, you start pressing, and, a lot of the Luukkonen trouble to me, I totally buy it. You heard it in the way I approached the question, even when I asked him about it. I'm a goalie defender, it's just baked in now because my kid played the position at the level he did for enough years that, I'm going to look for reasons why you made the goalie's life harder than you needed to. But there's a lot else there with Luukkonen this year that I'm nervous about. I'd be stunned if they didn't run it back with him because of the contract and because of last year. You've seen him look the part, but he's got to find his groove, just following the play, and there's a lot that go. I don't mean to get off on a tangent about Luukkonen. I'm not waiting to just talk about the goalie here, but. They panicked, and they were inexperienced enough. Some of these guys have been around now that shouldn't be a thing, but they still have overall a pretty young team, and I don't know how that. Well, that changes if you make big moves and can replace players in your lineup, but I don't see how they're going to find their way to doing enough of that to change 2/3 of your top line right now. Now, Norris will impact that. If he's healthy, maybe he's in between Thompson and Benson to start the year. And that's two older guys, still young, but older, experienced, with a kid. Maybe that works. But like Kulich and Benson with Thompson as your top line, for example, going into next year, trying to break a 14-year playoffs drought, that's a lot to put on those guys to play the most minutes of any forwards on the team. Like, they're your top line, and it's a 20-year-old and a 21-year-old. Like, whoa, that's going to be tough to get behind. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I like how they've played here, but there's no pressure in these games right now. There's no tension about the results, really. I mean, I know they still want to win and all that, but it's not tough times. And you get into December and you're battling for a wild card, I'm going to be worried about still too many kids, because I think that is a big thing that hurt them. That's not the power play and that's not the goalie. That's just the overall. Do I have enough people who know how to do it when it's really hot and it's really tough and the other team is really playing for something? You know, these teams that are comfortably in playoff spots, sure, it's nice to beat them. And I don't know for sure that they're not going all in. I just know at this time of the year, if you're battling between the 2 or the 3 or the what, like, how hard are you going? You know the playoffs are coming. You know you're in them. You know you're probably playing a really good team. You know, Wednesday night against Buffalo, maybe you're not giving everything. So I have a hard time buying that guys have learned how to play now, and using this last month as an example of that, because doing that again in the heat of a mid-season race when the standings really matter, it's a very different thing than playing out the string with teams that are all set moving into the playoffs.
I think so to speak, the pressure point you make is debatable, but we did have this team, wasn't it just last year, use pressure as an excuse? That with Granato, their expectations were higher, and I mean, how high were they? But they were too high. So, I guess I would still want to see that be, proven. That what you're saying is, I think it's fair, and you can't know what you've got there until you're really in it. And I like the potential too, and the players, but in the playoffs, it's, if you will, guys growing beards. It's guys, it's 28-year-olds that you're playing against who've been in the playoffs 7 times, maybe, and that's what you have to be able to not just meet but overcome. Not easy. Michael is next. Hello.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Bulldog, I can satisfy your want to go off on a UPL tangent real quick. I was a goalie myself too, and I asked myself, what kind of games would I want to find myself in to get back into a groove? And it would not be a game that was perceivably easy. I wouldn't want like the Flyers, like they gave him, when they lost 7-3. It was a rough goal. I would want the tougher team with the high shot volume to give myself as many opportunities to feel right again. And I feel like, speaking to you as being a goalie dad, get a goalie on track to kind of, get him in that groove. What kind of game do you think you throw him in?
A game like this tonight is a good one. I mean, Toronto needs a point here to clinch the division. I mean, they've got 2 games to get it, and Tampa's results matter to that. A Tampa loss would help them, get that goal too. So I think this is the kind of game you're describing. It's the opposite of the Philly game, who's also a team just kind of playing out the string. I think the whole thing here down the stretch, the last few weeks, it started while I was away on vacation. Oh, Reimer's playing again. Again. Like 9 out of 12, I think it ends up being here at some point. You're right up to, if I have the math right, it might even be, it's close to that anyway. And I read Lindy this morning said, UPL gets tonight. We want to get them, want to get them like feeling good going into the off season. Like, oh, okay, too bad you don't have more games to do that with, because you blew them all on James Reimer. I don't know, man. I think what I see with him, I mentioned, like, he's not, to me, following the play as well as he was. And that causes the overreactions. Like, I have no doubt. I mean, I don't know this, but I think last year there was evidence to support that he was stronger. I think he talked about it with Paul and other reporters, that he worked really hard. And I'm not assuming that he didn't do the same because he got good results last year heading into this season. I just think he got behind a lot. And I don't mean 1-0 or 2-0. I mean tracking the play, because as someone who played the position, if you're late reading something, then you got to go too hard to get there. That's when you overslide, and then it's hard to recover. It all just topples if you're not tracking really, really well. And I haven't heard him address this because it's probably too far in the weeds of goaliedom, really, for like the general reporting public to just really get into it with him. But I feel like that's where the problem starts, is that he just hasn't been seeing it as well. The defense being sloppy in front of him can cause a lot of that too. So, and that's not necessarily on him, but I see clean plays where he's just late. And I think that can be corrected. He's had a tough year that way to me, and that's the biggest thing that I've seen.
Yeah, I think, too, to that point, it's not just tracking the play, it's being ahead of it. Like, understanding from the positioning of, on a power play, for example, like, where could he go based on the hand he has the puck on? What is his next passing option? And feeling almost confident that that that's where the puck is going to go. And to your point, it didn't even feel like he has been behind. He hasn't even been on time. It's been just he's been almost doubting himself. I remember in that Philly game specifically, I think he gave up a goal short side high, almost on the goal line, and he's just not even playing his angles correctly. It's just obviously such a mental thing, which is why I don't think it should be a question about whether or not he should be back. But to your point, too, it's just weird that you don't want to give a guy a chance to get back in a hypothetical groove when there's only 2 games left in the season. That's
right.
You can't do that. That's just not realistic.
Especially if he matters like he should matter moving forward. The contract ain't going anywhere. So you're married to him. Now, it's not such an anchor that Levi couldn't show up and outplay him in the fall and just sort of take the job. And then, then fine. That solves your issue. But it's got to be one of those 2 guys, because I'd be stunned if they went out and brought in someone over the top of Luukkonen at this point. Like a veteran, like a John Gibson, who we've talked about for 5 years as an idea to try to fix their goaltending problem. I mean, someday he's going to retire. We're just going to be trade for John Gibson. And I'm not making fun of people. I mean, I'm the same way. I've been talking about John Gibson for 5 years. I don't think that's in the cards for them. That's not saying it's not an idea worth exploring. I just would be really surprised if they went that route.
Because of Levi, too.
Yeah. So you're going to have to solve it, I think, in-house. And, it's easy to, sort of just dismiss Luukkonen. Oh, it's over. I don't think so. I think everything that happened this year, he was better at the year before. And that tells me he can do it. I don't know, for whatever reason, it just got away from him this year. And once you start chasing, it's over. You're just not going to catch up because your fundamentals are going to get messed up, and this goal the caller's referencing in Philly maybe is an example of that, where just everything just sort of topples, and you just have to be. You just got to be locked in, tracking and following the play and anticipating what the caller says. Good to use that phrasing too, because that is it. You got to know where it's going before it gets there, and I think he's had a tough year in that respect.
Anytime we talk about goaltending in the Sabres, I mean, not anytime. When Levi started the season last year, that was very questionable. But it almost just seems like the saying, you can't win for trying, right? Luukkonen was kind of an afterthought. Then he got good. Then you pay him, and then it came back. It's just this team. It would be maddening at times. But respectfully, with all this, but expected goals. I'm not scoffing at that. Luukkonen's technique, different things that not all were within their control as, building the roster, building the team. When Adam says we'll do whatever we can, that has to include buying a good player. That's where the Sabres have stopped short. They can't claim they've done everything possible. They've done far from anything possible. That's, those kind of sneaky dead cap contracts where you can get you get a different asset because you're willing to spend to the line, and the Sabres aren't. So I can't really listen to we'll do anything possible. I could certainly I would expect Adams and his staff to just, be grinding at this, but if they're not going to be able to spend to the line, that's what, it could be Luukkonen, it could be power play. If they had one more, you talk about the top line, one more top guy on the team, that could have done it. That could have broken up that losing streak, one goal in those expected goal games, again, not being sarcastic, and you don't lose 13 in a row, and, you're right there. This year, and it's always something, no Rangers, no Pittsburgh, no Philadelphia, Detroit didn't get there, other teams did, Ottawa, has talent, and the Canadians thing, the Sabres have a better goal differential than the Canadians, but they got a couple of young guys, the one recently, and the defenseman has had a great season. But, now you had kind of those other guys. Boston.
Right, Boston went away for you.
Boston went to last, and it's still just always something. It'll be for years to come, it'll be really hard to know the difference between these Sabre seasons of late. Just like, what was it this year? It was goalie. It was power play. It was a losing streak. It was a failure to make a coaching change. It was what? It's just all just kind of one blur where there's always something in the way. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog back with more after this. Pregame for Sabres Leafs at 6 on WGR.
More of
back. Sabres pregame coming up. Paul Hamilton joins us at the top of the hour. Was it today on One Bills Live where they asked listeners for their favorite draft moment? I think that was today. Favorite Bills draft moment?
Yes. Says Zach. I didn't hear anything.
I think it was today.
Live today. So normally I hear it on my way in, but I was just I don't know. I had bad timing today.
Do you have one?
Favorite?
I'm not especially proud of mine. Mine is hilarious if you use 20 years of hindsight.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing comes right to mind for me. I'm sorry to beg off. I don't have a favorite draft moment. No, I'm so negative. I remember all the things I hated.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Spiller.
Spiller, Willis McGahee, I don't know. I don't have a favorite.
All of mine that I remember best are running backs. I mean, Thurman was a saga that day, and whether it was the Bills or not, it was like painful. You wanted him drafted. Let's go.
Right.
And I certainly got to a point where I was really hoping the Bills would do it. Like, I wanted that. But that's so long ago. Spiller, who I came to really like as a player and even a little bit off the field, but I was pulling into my driveway when that pick was announced, and I was just incredulous. I mean, how can you pick a running back right now? How can you do that? 9?
Yeah.
How can you do that as the Bills in that situation? But my favorite moment was McGahee. That was like the whole team here. Maybe not you so much.
No, I was not involved in that conversation. I remember what it sounded like, and I hated every single word of it.
Luxury pick, an injured running back.
Yeah.
They weren't really into their drought yet. I mean, I bit hard on that idea.
Yeah.
And it felt like, not yourself, but it felt like, Jeremy, Brad, we were kind of in on a thing, especially those two, more so than me.
Yeah.
I felt like connected, and I liked how that felt. Bledsoe gave me that feeling. That was not a draft pick in 2002.
Yeah.
They spent the draft pick on him. I felt, like sort of proud of that a little bit, being some small part in like pushing that agenda. But McGahee, like, that was Saturday afternoon, 2004, and elation. 20 years later, even maybe 3 years later, I might have said,
Yeah.
Lynch, I mean, it's running backs.
Right, yeah.
They're due to pick a running back in round 1.
Oh, my gosh.
Let's go.
Oh, my gosh.
Let's go. Tomorrow, we'll discuss it.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't have any. I've got like things I felt good about regarding the draft, but like as far as a pick goes, yeah, I don't know. I know I left here the year they picked Allen, expecting them to pick Allen, and that they would never touch Josh Rosen, which is why I'm still very sensitive when people go, you all wanted Josh Rosen. I'm like, I never for 1 second thought they were picking Josh Rosen. There was no way. On paper, there was no way Sean McDermott was picking that kid. And whatever, I didn't know that, but I really felt it. I thought Allen fit all the stuff they liked. It still didn't mean I thought he was going to be great, but I just thought that big hands, throw it through the wind, all that stuff that was easy to poke fun at. But even that, I mean, I wasn't sitting home going, oh, great, they picked Josh Allen. I had my head buried in my hands because I thought our lives were going to be a living hell. And they kind of were for a little while there. Professionally speaking, I mean, whatever, we got through it. And obviously he delivered, so it turned out great.
Yeah, man, those were some times.
Yeah. Like my stance on Watkins is a draft memory that I feel really good about. Because I felt righteous about that, and
But there are moments where you didn't like the pick. That's what you're saying,
right? Yeah, they're all predicated on negativity, and I don't like that about myself right now with this question.
Well, with the Sabres, there have been a few in the last 10 years that have been really exciting and very positive.
Yeah,
and they have won nothing tonight. Sabres and Leafs pregame next here on WGR.
We know you can't hear.
Sabres pregame coming up next as they host the Toronto Maple Leafs for a 7 p.m. puck drop. No Owen Power tonight. He does appear to have a serious injury. Good news, though, from general manager Kevin Adams, is he confirmed it should not bleed into next season, but Power will be seeking a second evaluation. Beck Malenstein also going to miss tonight with an undisclosed injury. And with that, the team has called up Isak Rozan in net tonight. All signs are pointing to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. 9 other games tonight in the NHL. Some notables. Columbus can make things interesting in the East with a win tonight versus Philadelphia. Game time also at 7. If the Blue Jackets do win, they will stay alive. But if they lose, Montreal will take that final wildcard spot in the East. Big shakeup are expected with the Miami Dolphins. GM Chris Greer confirmed today the team will be parting ways with cornerback Jalen Ramsey. They'll be seeking a trade. Greer did say the team is not looking, though, to trade wide receiver Tyreek Hill. And in the NBA, the playing games start tonight over on TNT. First up, Orlando versus Atlanta at 7:30. Then at 10, the Warriors take on the Grizzlies. The winners will become the 7 seeds, while the losers will play again on Friday for a chance to become the 8th seed in their conference. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Welcome, Sabres pregame tonight. Game 81, home to Toronto. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Paul Hamilton shortly. The Sabres come in off their loss Sunday in Tampa with a record of 35-45. 35-38-7, 77 points, 2 above Boston, which has its final regular season game tonight at home. So you can close them out with 1 point here and stay out of last place if that matters to you. Toronto looking to clinch the same Atlantic Division. They're at 50-30, 50, 26-4. Only one team in the NHL has more than 50 wins. That's Winnipeg with 55. That is, Winnipeg has clinched the President's Trophy. The Leafs need 1 point in one of their final 2 games to freeze out Tampa and finish first, which would mean Ottawa in the playoffs. Cool.
Indeed.
Dare I say it?
Indeed, yes. I think that'll be a ton of fun. And, you know, the jockeying for position, you know, there's still, you know, everything's not all set. We've got a couple of teams alive, like Zach just said, going in tonight. Like Montreal's not home free last night. Really hurt that they couldn't get that thing home with the spectacular debut from Demidov. But nonetheless, I think the teams that are in the spots are going to be the teams. You know, we'll see. I mean, St. Louis and Minnesota are still vulnerable to Calgary. Calgary's got 2 games left. They each only have 1. So, you know, there's still some chance, but I'd expect we pretty much know the playoff field, I think.
The Sabres home to the Leafs tonight. Your drive to the game is brought to you by Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. Here's Paul Hamilton with us from KeyBank Center on the West Her hotline. Paul, what's new? It feels like it's been a while since we've spoken.
Yeah, it has. It seemed like most of our games were over the weekend. I don't believe you were there the last time we had a weekday game. So,
right.
Yeah, it has been a while. Hope you're doing well.
The Sabres did have, was it 3 weekends in a row where they played Saturday, Sunday, and a couple on the road and one here?
And it was like Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday to close the season out, I think, is how it's gone.
You could go ahead and make the whole schedule out of that if you wanted.
Yeah, that'd be fine with me. Tell me what night the nights are, and I'll make my plans.
I'm okay.
It's almost like a college schedule other than the Thursdays.
Hey, Paul, just real quick before we get into this one and anything you might have on what you heard from Kevin Adams an hour ago, did you watch Demidov at all? Do you want to back off he's not going to have any impact at all on them? Because he looked pretty good last night.
Yeah, that's great. He's how old?
I don't give give a crap how old he is, Paul. He looked fantastic last night.
Awesome. Yeah, he's going to win the Conn Smythe.
Oh, my God.
The Conn Smythe. What did you guys talk about? He has to win the Conn Smythe to impress? Is that what
Yeah,
was being said?
apparently. Mike, talk to Paul. Paul, I'm in a timeout because I don't want to turn this into a thing where I just really lose my temper with you.
Young players can't be good?
Paul downplayed the impact, and referenced how Slafkovsky took a while to develop and whatever. And this kid shows up in Montreal last night and was the best player on the ice, with Bedard in the game, by the way. So, whatever.
They lost, though.
They did lose, Paul. That's what you should have come off the top rope with, is that they didn't win.
I'll say
Paul,
it.
That was what you needed.
They lost the game.
Right.
All right. What's left for the Sabres here to try to figure out or, take away from another disappointing season?
Get back to where they were for 6-7 weeks, because I didn't see it in the 3 games. A little bit, but for the most part, I did not see it in the 3 games that we're just talking about here. So, they lost leads in all 3 games, and Lindy Ruff, you'll hear him kind of fight back about that, saying they got goalie. They did, but it's been a while since they've been losing leads. They have found ways not to lose leads, and in all 3 games they did. And in Tampa, they had a good first period. They were, making Tampa turn the puck over, and they were getting chances. They rang a crossbar. They had the goaltender beaten. They hit a post where they had the goaltender beaten. And then they scored 2 goals in the last minute of the period, 14.4 seconds apart, and took the lead. And I thought they deserved to have the lead. And then all of a sudden, it's like the team that played the Colorado Avalanche showed up for the last 40 minutes. And it was just, let's set up Kucherov for goals, and let's set up Getzlaf for goals. Let's make sure these guys get to 40. We don't want them not to get to 40. Here, let's just hand Kucherov the puck in front of the net like he's on our team. And it was just, what are you guys doing? I mean, nobody covered anybody in front of the net. They lost every battle. It was unbelievable how bad they were. And that's what they have to do. What it showed us, do I think they've made a lot of progress? Yeah, I think they have. But it also showed us there's a lot of work to be done still. Let's not get too carried away with this, and understand that they still have quite a bit of work to do.
Tough news for Owen Power, Paul. I mean, the Sabres season obviously ends on Thursday, but tough for him to go into the offseason with at least some level of a serious knee injury, serious enough that he's going to New York to get a second opinion, according to Kevin Adams last hour.
That was such a gruesome looking thing. I mean, I don't like to project, and I'm still not going to, but it's something that obviously is going to need some rehab, and whether it's surgery or not, we'll have to find out.
Yeah.
But and that's a shame, because he needed his off season to get stronger and work on his game, and this was going to be a big off season for him to be able to take those points that Lindy Ruff has been working on him with. I thought recently, I've liked his game. I think he's played pretty well recently, and I can always tell because the snide comments have stopped that I get, and when he's not playing well, I get a bushel full of them, and I really haven't gotten many snide comments on how poorly he's going, which always means that he's doing better as things go on. So he can still work with that as he goes into the off season, but unfortunately, I think his off season, a lot of it is going to be on, working on rehab.
So when we did talk a few weeks ago and since then about Luukkonen, Reimer was getting all the games. You found that curious. A lot of us did. Now it's 2 left, and Luukkonen had the better outing over the weekend. He gets tonight and maybe Thursday, it would seem. Is that enough time to matter?
I think he's earned it, and I think that is good for him. I think his last 2 starts, the one against Boston, he won, and it was like they were awful just to start with. And they basically let Pasternak, they did with Pasternak what they were doing with Kucherov and with all the stars of Tampa Bay. They basically let him go crazy right off the bat, and now 2 goals are in on Luukkonen. And then after that, they tightened up and outscored Boston 6-1. Luukkonen only had to make the 18 or 19 saves. It wasn't a lot for him, but he did make some good saves along the way. He settled down. The team settled down. And then I thought against Florida, he played really well. Through overtime, made some huge saves in overtime. He looked more like the goaltender we saw last year against Florida. And then in the shootout, unfortunately, he made 2 out of 3 saves, and Buffalo couldn't score. They went 0-for-3 against, I agree with Lindy. They did get goalie twice in Columbus and Florida, but there were some other problems more than just getting goalied in those games. So, it's just all they had to do is, get 1 goal in the shootout and then extend it and try to do. And they had been doing pretty well in shootouts. But curiously, Thompson did not get an opportunity. Peterka had been doing better in shootouts, but the only one worse on the team than Peterka is Zucker in their careers. Of course, Tuck and Quinn are very good in shootouts. Unfortunately, neither one were able to come through. But I did find it curious that Thompson did not get an opportunity.
Yeah. Paul, tonight, we know what to expect with Toronto in town and what the building will be like. Did Lindy or any of the players in the room talk about wanting to spoil that? And do you think that this group has, the pride to want to, just keep Toronto from, the least you can do is, or really the most you can do is keep them from winning the division tonight?
Yeah, that's what they talked about, not the amount of fans that are in here. That
right.
They'd like to be spoiler and stop them from winning the division. Interesting, guys. I saw a note like the New York Knicks are going to play the Detroit Pistons in the playoffs, and Detroit will not fill any ticket orders that are from New York State.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that pretty interesting, that they're trying to keep the Knicks fans away from Detroit and the game. How successful they'll be, I don't know, but I did, because we've talked many, many times. How do you change this?
Yeah.
How do you keep these fans out of here, especially if the Sabres become relevant and they happen to play them in the playoffs again? And I found that interesting, and I'm interested to see if it works, if they can keep the Knicks fans out by not filling ticket orders from New York State.
That's happened in hockey. Carolina's done that in the playoffs. That's been
to Buffalo.
Yeah, so and I think it's even happened in football too.
Jacksonville
They've
Jaguars.
Right, they've tried to do it. I don't know how successful it ends up being, but efforts have been made. How about the Leafs, Paul? I mean, it's been a banner year here for them. They've never won the Atlantic Division, so they've got an opportunity to do something, but we all know they're a little bit like the Bills here. It's just been going for 9 years instead of only 5, where they just can't get over the hump, and they've only been out of the first round one time, and so the playoffs are going to really define their season. How do you feel about them going in? We talked to Luke Fox a couple of hours ago, and I mentioned to him how I watch the Leafs plenty when I'm not watching the Sabres, and it is a different style team, even though a lot of the names and faces are very familiar.
For me, it all starts with Anthony Stolarz. I mean, he's had a great season, .923 save percentage, but I've seen that before. A Leaf goaltender have a really good regular season. Freddie Anderson used to do that, and then fall apart in the playoffs. So if Anthony Stolarz carries over into the playoffs what he's done in the regular season, I think the Leafs do have a chance to do better. Is Mitch Marner going to play better in the playoffs? He too usually has better regular seasons than he has playoffs. But for me, it's Stolarz. If he, he's 28-3 with a .923 save percentage. It's like, wow. If he does that in the playoffs, the Leafs are going to be a tough out.
Our look at the other team tonight, our spotlight look at tonight's opponent, is brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey. When it's game time, it's Tully time. Yeah, I'm kind of rooting for that for Stolarz. The season began, and he was getting an opportunity that he'd never really had in the NHL yet, and then he got hurt, and I thought, oh no. If Joseph Wall comes along and just takes the net, that there goes this great opportunity for this guy, but the opportunity represented itself, and he's done everything he could with it so far.
No, he did, and so we'll see him today. So they might get goalied again, as they did in Florida and did in Columbus. We'll have to wait and see. They have not beaten the Leafs this year. They've lost 5-3 and 6-3, which usually, no matter how bad Buffalo is, they usually have a good. They usually beat the Leafs. But not this year. They've given up 11 goals against them and lost both games.
One of those was in that 13-game streak toward the end of it, where they had a lot of close losses. And Kevin Adams talked about this with us earlier, but then a few bad ones toward the end of that streak.
Yeah, it's kind of goofy. Both the games they played Toronto were in December, and they came very, very close to each other, and that's the only 2 times they played so far, and they had to wait till April to do it again.
That's right. Okay, thanks, Paul.
Take care, guys.
More with Paul later on in the pregame show. Sabres and Leafs tonight. We've got Bo Byram and Luukkonen coming up from the locker room.